What the fuck is going on? Can you hear me? There's some weird shit going on today. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, what's going on? We're back. Back in the New York Hardcore Chronicles groove. It's been a week and a half. That's long for this show. What's happening, JoJo? I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Some weird shit going on with the internet. What's up, JoJo? Lori Dawn, the whole gang, Gertie, Paulie Pork Chops Vids, Billy. Oh, you can hit. Thank you. Somebody fucking responded. Shit. You know? Thank you, Billy Pilgrim. Yeah, things are weird. It's so weird. Weird. I'm good. I strive to be good. Loud and clear in London. Well, that's all that really matters, isn't it? Yo, Joe Ackerman, what's up, brother? Are you still in New York? You still? What's up? Hey, Paul Stone. Hey, listen. Enough of me talking about me. Let's hear you talk about me.
How are you? Tell me about yourself.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, yo, got to shout out Larry Kelly, who is manning the counter at Bridge 9 Records in Beverly, Mass.
Beverly.
What's up? Yo, listen. All you fuckbrains in Beverly, Mass right now, I know you can hear me. You're in Bridge 9 Records. Buy some shit, you cheap fucks. Listen, help me help you. There you go. What's going on, man?
Now, were you singing Missing Persons at the intro there?
Can you hear me?
You were.
What are words for?
Dale Bozio.
When no one's listening, what are words for? Yo, speaking of cats, Dale Bozio got in a lot of trouble with the like animal control people. You hear about that?
Really? No.
Speaking of instance,
is she a bad? She doesn't like cats?
No, apparently she's like an animal hoarder, and she like left for tour or something, and like left a house full of animals, and like they got a call and they went in there and like half of them were dead. She got in a lot of trouble.
Wow.
Is that right? Parris, you went to the first missing persons gig?
Terry Bozio.
I'm having a hard time getting the comments up. We'll have to talk. Was that at the Peppermint Lounge? Was that at the Pep Lounge? Right. That's right. Well, we'll have to talk about that when you come on the show one of these days. Oh, that's today.
They tie into your Zappa universe, you know?
Listen, man. Are we going to go there? Let's go there. Missing Persons, for those that may not know, Missing Persons, the band, was actually Frank Zappa's backing band with Terry Bozio, who is one of the most killer drummers that ever walked the planet Earth, Warren Cucurullo, who later ended up in Duran Duran, Chuck Wild, who played keyboards, and Dale Bozio, who was on a bunch of Zappa records, including Joe's Garage. So Missing Persons was literally like Frank Zappa, good part of Frank Zappa's backing band, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So what are we talking about here?
Things.
I guess. What's that?
Things. We're talking about things.
Well, let's just talk about the gig that just went down, which was this, right?
Oh yeah, here we go.
There you go. And yeah, this
that's our last guest, I think, wasn't it?
This is the last guy that was on the show a week and a half ago, and we went and saw him play here in New York City, and they were great. I thought they were great, man.
Yeah, they really, and you know what? Just a good bunch of guys too. They were a lot of fun, and that was very cool. He he gave a nice shout out from the stage for you and the show and everything. And
yeah, that was sort of it sort of caught me by surprise. It was really nice of him.
yeah, they're real. I mean, that band is exploding right now. So
yeah, it's interesting. I got a couple of messages from people that were like about him being on the show and about the band in particular. About like they suck, this and that, blah 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 blah. And I was kind of shocked because it came from a couple other musicians. I was like, wow, all right.
I guess they don't listen to their records. You guys great.
Well, politics, right?
Yeah. No, they really were great. This was the day one of the On the Streets Again 2 festival out of the Meadows in Brooklyn, and bunch of great bands, lots of Oi related stuff, and of course, a great lineup of bands. The Take played, and Intimidation, and 45 Adapters. That is a good shot.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Nice color on that.
Me, Tristan, and Adam. Yeah, it's a good one.
Gotta love the Stone Roses shirt too.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? And since you mentioned it, I want to shout out these guys. Of course, Hey and Authentic Productions, who busts his friggin' ass, to do these shows. He's a great lover of Oi, Oi and skinhead and hardcore music. And, it's not easy to put on a 2-day show like that, and that's another dude that just does it because he loves it, and of course that's Sean Dixon and Rob Castoria, who were doing security, who are New York hardcore guys. But yeah, big shout out to Horahan and Authentic Productions for dealing with the bullshit that you have to deal with to put on 2 shows like that. And believe me when I tell you, it's a bunch of fucking bullshit. And wait, here's somebody mentioned The Take. Of course, we love The Take. I did 2 of their videos. They're one of our favorites. So there's Scotty Roberts from The Take, right?
Scotty.
Yeah.
Well, I always equate The Take to really sparking the whole back to the New York hardcore roots thing, because your video at A7 was what really kicked it off.
That was the first hit, and it was successful. It was actually, I was doing the Take video for the Elitists there, and then afterwards they played, and we played with our Minor Threat things, Seeing Red. And after that, I talked to Jesse and said, hey, let's give this a shot. And we did. So they're the ones that really set it up. There's, of course, Will Shepler, with the Agnostic Front and Madball pedigree, So, you know what? I think Will Shepler, strangely enough, has been in, I've done 4 videos that Will Shepler has been in through the years. 2 Madball and 2 The Take. I directed 4 videos that had Will Shepler in it, Yeah, there he is. Yep. Yo, what's up, Steen in Denmark? My man. Hope you're well, buddy. What's happening, Mark, up in Canada? Is it snowing yet? Yep. Jacob in Denmark. Wow, we got a lot of people in Denmark watching today. I wonder why. What's going on in Denmark? Let me see. Oh, one last one that you sent me. Yeah. And this band played. Yeah, they were all right. These scrub. He played. Come on. There you go.
There they are.
Yeah. Yep. So
yeah, I thought you guys
it was
sounded
cool.
really good.
Hey, listen, bro. Let me tell you something. We always sound good, motherfucker.
Well, since the last show, you did the 2 California shows, right? I mean, so you've been.
Yeah, that's why. That's why. Was it yesterday? Yeah. That's why we sounded so good, because we rehearsed. we were, we rehearsed and then we went to LA and played we played a couple back-to-back couple shows. So we were pretty well rehearsed,
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I just love the bang, song into song into song. I love that continuity,
Yeah, that's what we do. We just go bang, 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 bang.
And
what happens when you do that? What happens when you go when you're in a band and you get up there and you go bang, 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 is now we're so acclimated to it that whenever like someone has to stop to tune up, it feels like really awkward and uncomfortable. And like,
what's wrong with you?
Like we're losing big, like ugh. You just like, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling now
And
in between songs.
You have to add songs. That reminds me when I remember in one of the Ramones documentaries, they said that when Richie Ramone joined the band, he was so furious the way he played. They had to add songs into the set because everything was twice as fast as it usually was.
Right. You see Mike playing with us yesterday? He's like
Mike crushed yesterday.
Yeah, Mike crushed.
Mike he's pretty special, that guy, as a drummer, let me tell you.
He's under a lot of pressure playing with us, It's not it's not for the faint of heart,
You're not an easy, what did we say? You're a cruel but fair leader.
Yeah, a mean but fair. That's what I tell my girlfriend, when she, I said, a mean but fair. No, you're not. You're just mean. Yeah, Mike killed it. Hey, what's up, Brian? Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Brian.
Sk8bored. Hey, Big Rob, Bitter Uproar. What's up? All right. Let's get the show on. Let's get the Shizzo on the road.
Do it.
I'll talk to you in a bit.
Let's go to Parris.
All right. See you in a bit. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles live off an image they had never duplicated. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics. The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush DTFM Vinyl Distro Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, and Mad Vintage. They buy, sell, and collect band shirts, primarily hardcore. The DIY operation was started and is operated by a hardcore kid who just loves collecting and eventually got into vintage clothing, specifically the realm of vintage band shirts. They are always looking to buy out collections to either keep, sell, or trade. New shirts added daily at www.madvintage.com and posted on Instagram. Dig deep into that closet of crap and reach out to them. Make some dough for yourself. Help me help you. Mad Vintage. That said, let's bring our guest on. Here we go. Stop eating food, bro. I'm bringing you on the show. Get that fucking spoon out of your mouth, bro. Today, I see what you're doing, man. Today's guest is an American musician, songwriter, and camera operator hailing from the island of Manhattan in New York City. As a musician, he's known for his work with the bands White Devil, The Mad, Sam Sarah, Psychic Orgy, Cro-Mags, and currently Aggros. During the golden age of music video, he directed numerous iconic music videos and currently works as a motion picture and television camera operator. Here today to celebrate the release of the Aggros music video Sk8bored Fight, please welcome, coming at us all the way from Brooklyn, New York, our old friend, Parris Mayhew. Fuck are you eating, bro?
Pie.
Oh, is that the pie? Is that the pie Barbalin made?
Yes. It's apple, banana, coconut kuchen.
Well, I hope you brought enough for the whole class.
I did. What's up, Big Rob?
Yeah, right? They're coming out of the woodwork for you, bro.
And Mike
Rob,
Price is up there.
Tony Palmisano.
Mike Price, John, Wayne.
Big Rob was great back in the day at the A7. He was twice the size of anybody else. He would just throw people around.
I remember showing up to some apartment and knocking on the door. I guess I was 16 or something. And the door cracks open and I look up and Big Rob he's his head is like looking down at me. He's like, "What do you want?" I was like, "I'm here to see somebody." I forgot who I went to go hang out with. It was me and Sean Taggart, and we went into the apartment. I can't remember. I think it was. I know Ray Bees was there, and a bunch of guys, and we, we'd been all night. God, it was got to be 5 a.m. or something. And we go in and we sit down, and Sean Taggart sits on the couch, and I think Ray Bees came out with a buzzer, and he comes up behind Sean, and like all these skinheads just jump on Sean and just start shaving his head, and I'm like, I'm in the corner laughing. I'm like, Sean, no, and they all, and like 8 heads like all turned simultaneous and looked at me, and they were like, "What are you laughing at? You're next." He converged on me and shaved my head. And,
Really?
yeah, and I remember waking up the next morning.
I do not remember you. I do not remember you with a shaved head.
Yeah, I woke up the next morning. I had to go to school, and showed up to school bald.
Oof.
Thanks, Big Rob. Big Rob's like, I don't remember.
I don't remember that.
We used to shave everybody's heads.
Brian Harris, please play the BC Rich for us real quick. But we'll save that. We'll save that for later. Hey, Roy, I see you, Roy. Hey, you know what? Let's get Roy on real quick because I know he's on a time thing. Set the table a little bit. We're gonna with Roy Mayorga. How did he initially get involved? Just so we could set the table a bit. Let's bring him on. He's on the ministry tour. We'll do a couple minutes with him, and then we'll sort of we'll go back and we'll break down the skateboard fight video.
Sounds great. So you want me to? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you were bringing that up.
Right.
So I mean, I've known Roy for a long time. I mean, obviously he's a New York staple. But like I remember, like back in the music building days when we were writing the Revenge album, like Roy would come and pound on the door and be like, "Let me in, let's jam," and I was always like, all it's going to do is create anxiety because I know it's going to be great, and we had already been playing with somebody else, and I just knew if I let him in the door, it would be a problem. But he's just an extraordinary player. But we remained friends all these years, and a couple of years ago, I'd say had to have been like 5 years ago, I just posted on Facebook, JFK to LAX. And when I landed in LAX, there was a text from Roy saying, "Oh, you're in LA. Did you bring your guitar with you?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "Well, come over tomorrow and let's jam." And that basically sets the stage for how Roy ended up on a song on Rise of the Aggros called Fear View Mirror. And we could talk about it once he's on.
And this was, yeah, all right, yeah. Let's get him on it. All right, Roy.
That was taken that day.
Okay. Without any further ado, let's welcome back an old friend to the show. He's an American drummer born, like myself, in Forest Hills, Queens. In his incredibly proficient career, he is known for his work with the bands Nausea, Hell Yeah, Stone Sour, Soulfly, Amoebics, Ministry, and many more. He also recorded and plays on the Aggros track Fear View Mirror. Please welcome, coming at us from, I believe, Montreal, Canada, the current stop of the Ministry tour, our old friend, Mr. Roy Mayorga. Brother!
Bonjour!
What's up?
Are you in Montreal?
Yeah, we're in Montreal right now. We're I can't remember the name of I don't even know the name of the place we're in. Oh, we're in
okay, we lost him.
Metzelas. It's right next to
you're out,
Creek.
And you're out with Ministry, and that's Gary Newman in Frontline Assembly, right?
That's right. Yeah. What's up,
I
Parris?
I bet you're having a great time seeing Gary Newman play every night.
It's been great watching him play every night. And Frontline. I mean, I don't know if you know, maybe we talked about this last time, but I'm a huge Gary Newman fan. In fact, a huge fan of all post-punk of that era of music. So for me to tour with this guy is more than a dream come true. And to be able to hang out with him every day and hang out with his band and be able to call him a friend and shoot the shit, it's cool. Mind-blowing. And he's such a cool, approachable, down-to-earth person. I can't say that enough,
Mark Tolch up in Toronto says, "Roy, you killed it in Toronto last night. I was there."
Awesome. That's
Right
great.
on. And
how are you
Lou
guys
says,
doing?
yeah,
How are you
Yeah.
guys doing?
we're good, man.
We're great. Thank you.
Great to see you. I'll be seeing you in a couple days, Parris.
That's right.
Yeah, you guys are doing, yes, Terminal 5 next week, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So let's talk about the recording, how it came to be, and I know you talk a little bit about maybe the future. Roy, how did you end up on the Aggros thing?
Well, like Parris was saying before, it was just like I think it was just more of a casual jam, right? Like you had, like I think you had some ideas, or we just came up with that on the spot and just kind of like developed that song, that the Fear View Mirror song. I think is that how it went?
Yeah, I mean, I had the song, but I had 500 songs. And
So did when you came in the room, did you have that? Did you have that song already? Is that something that we both embellished on?
Yeah, all those songs,
remember.
all those riffs were written, and I'd been jamming them with a bass player, and Rob Buckley for a while, but it wasn't like complete. It was just like one of 30, 40 songs that didn't really have a shape, but we gave it a shape that afternoon, and fast.
Yeah.
It seemed like only like 2 hours had passed before you kind of I've told this story so many times. You just kind of like because we had headphones on, which is something I wasn't used to doing.
It was weird. Yeah.
You just like pulled your earphone back and you said something like, "So you want to record it? Everything is set up. All I have to do is hit this button, and we recorded." I was like, "Well."
Yeah.
Now I think we did 2 takes, and then you said, "Oh, do you play bass? So that's Johnny's bass over there. You can play the bass." Oh, and after we did the bass track, you said, "Let's do guitars," and we just kept, treating it like as if it was a regular recording session. So
Yeah.
went from a jam to a recording session, and then you like did your magic and
some editing.
Did a really nice quick mix and played it back to the speakers, and I just remember being astonished at how great it sounded. And then I went home, and then about 1:00 in the morning, I get a text from Roy saying, "Roy, I'm so sorry." I go, "What?" I mean, first I got to preface this by saying, after I listened to it, I was like, "Man, this is amazing! I can't believe this is it's like an album quality song." And I remember Roy said, like, "Damn, if you lived in New York, we would be in a band together, and we could do this all the time." I was like, "Damn, I got to have an album recorded in a week if I lived here." And I just remember being so overjoyed, and I think Roy could see the enthusiasm I had for how it turned out. And then I left, and like 1:00 in the morning that night, I get a text from Roy saying, "Bro, I'm so sorry. I erased it by accident," or something. The tracks got
that normally never happens. That normally never happens. What happened was, though, I thought I had erased it when I tried to transfer it over from one drive to the other, and I went to call it back up, and I was just like, "Oh my God," like hours and hours of work just gone. And then I was like, I have to call him and let him know that. And then within, I think, 5 minutes, I call you back, "Hey, I found it. It's all good."
Oh, that's the worst. What could be worse? That I'm familiar with that feeling of terror. Like, when in editing, like, right, Parris, editing a film or editing a music video, and it's like things crash and you're like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
I had that experience twice. The Chronicles demo was recorded one day, and then we had to go back the next day and re-record it because some engineer and like printed tone on the tape.
Oh.
So we just went in the next day and redid it. And then the exact same thing happened with Age of Quarrel. We had a digital like mixing was new. And, Steve Remote had put the whole thing into the computer and he'd done this whole mix, the whole album, Age of Quarrel. And then, we were all like, "Oh, okay, we finally got through that." And we left the studio. And then the next day we get the call that like, some assistant engineer came in and, and just like deleted the entire mix. So when Roy gave me that call, I was like, "This is like my lot in life." But
it's a curse.
It wasn't. But yeah.
One thing that I take solace in when that happens, because that happened to me fairly recently, is it's always better the second time around. At least in my experience, when I have to go back and like recreate and edit like and do it again. I'm always like, you know what? I think it's better the second time.
Meant
But
to be.
Well, we're making it sound like it was very dramatic, but the afternoon was so casual and so relaxed. Like, you know, I remember Roy just saying to me, "What do you want to do?" And I just started playing, you know, the main riff, and we cycled through that a little bit. And he was like, "You got anything else?" I was like, "Yeah, this is the chorus part," and we played that, and it was just, you know, it wasn't even like I had to even talk to him. We just played.
You just played, jammed, just kind of went with it.
And then, you know, and I had a bridge part, and it's like, okay, let's do that. And then he came up with this whole like very, you know, Roy Mayorga Tom thing that built up, which was awesome. And like we didn't even really discuss it. I didn't say, oh, that's good, or try this. It was just that kind of all just happened. And then I think at some point we were like, okay, that's the order. Let's play it through. And we literally just played it through maybe twice before he asked me to if I wanted to record it. And I just remember I never remember ever having such a fluid, effortless afternoon playing music.
I remember we tried doing that to a click track, and I think we decided to just go with it naturally. I remember trying that. I'm glad we did that.
It's the only song on the record that's not played to a click.
It's so much better without it. Yeah.
When you record, in most instances, Roy, do you traditionally play with a click track?
Depends on the situation. Like if you were to say, like when I did the first Soulfly record, that was all completely live in one room, like how we've always done it. As opposed to Stone Sour, that was to a click track. And most of the times, like the last few records I made with Stone Sour, exception of the last one, I would play to a click track with pre-recorded guitars, demo guitars, and then they would take those away and retrack to me, and vice versa. You know.
I know the Nausea stuff wasn't done to a click track.
Oh,
right?
Hell no! That was one take and Rochambeau. Seriously, I have the reel, and I was looking for all these extra alternate takes. There isn't. We only took each song once.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm like, wow, we fucking had balls, man. You know what I mean? We like knew what the hell we were doing. Because we knew we had limited time. I mean, as you know, Parris, you have limited time back then. You didn't have a lot of money, so you knew your shit before walking in the studio, because you had to get it right. You had like X amount of hours, and basically the guy's like, okay, good enough, next song. That's how it went, you know.
Right.
And that's exactly how it went on the Nausea record, and I could hear it. I could hear all of us like we're like sort of rushing, but it's kind of cool because it gives us that energy. You know what I mean? So it's awesome.
You know, it's interesting because lately I've been really enjoying disco, and part of the reason I'm really enjoying disco is because in the recordings I can hear the room. You know, like I really hear the room, and I guess, you know, I missed that in a lot of the recordings I hear now. So when I hear stuff that I loathed back in the day, right? Growing up in New York City.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, you know, going to public school and having like the rock, you know, the disco versus, you know, the
disco sucks.
battles.
Oh
Disco
yeah, I was in all of that shit. I love it now, but I was in the same boat as you.
Right.
100%.
So now I hear a lot of stuff, and I love it. I could just feel the warmth of the room. I just hear the room in these recordings, and that's something I really miss in today's recordings. You don't get a lot of that these days, you know?
Well, everything's so compartmentalized in recordings, you know, everything's really tight and to the grid, and, you know, there's no life there. I mean, it works. That sound and approach works for some bands, and, you know, and I applaud it for some bands, but it doesn't work for like greasy fucking like heavy rock and roll. No way. You need to have that natural push and pull, like Fear View Mirror. It has a natural push and pull to it. The bridge speeds up. When we get back into that chorus, it really drops down, you know. And when it gets to the verse, it gets even deeper and slower. You know what I mean? That's the cool part of that. You know,
even in the middle of the chorus, we slow down. Because I remember you were saying, I'm gonna go like this. Bam, bam, I'm gonna hit on the downbeat, the cymbal. So just like lay back with me. I remember like doing that whole lay back, and you hear it on the record, and it sounds like we're really laying back, but then it just settles into this. Yeah, it's great.
And the only way that would be able to work is if we're both in the same room. Now, if we would have done that at separate times, it wouldn't have been the same. So basically, we laid down the tracks, and then you went overdub to that. But yeah, you need that foundation. You need to be in the same room to make that kind of magic happen. You know,
especially your room, which was like I was just basically standing on right face to face with you.
Yeah, you're like 10 feet away from me. Yeah.
Awesome. Parris, looking towards the future, and any plans to work with Roy some more?
Well, if he has time, I'll send him a track from time to time, and if he's got time. Okay. He froze.
Yeah. I'll get to read some stuff when I get back home, do an interview. Yeah, sorry.
Are you gotcha.
It's like I asked again.
That wasn't to you, that was to him.
This guy in
how's things out on the how's things out with the Al Circus? Everything cool?
Everything's great, man. It's we're doing 5 in a row this week. It's been
I saw that.
This is like the second big run. We did the first was like 2 and then 3. Then we did a 4 in a row, then another 2 in a row. Now this is the bigger one. It's the 5 in a row. It's always the challenge. And it's great. By the 3rd show, that's when we usually, all guns are blazing. All guns are blazing. We always come out, but by the middle of the run though, we're on it. And then when you take a day off, you just start over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see you guys kind of do 3 or 4 in a row, and then take a day. There's a day off, and then it's like 3 day off, 4 day off, 3, 4 day off type of thing.
Yeah. That's just how it is,
Yeah.
And Gary, he plays every day. Our day off, they're playing. He's played every day. It's incredible.
Got it. Cool. All right.
So,
I know you're busy, Roy. I know you got another interview, Roy. Thanks for coming on. Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
I want to thank you. I want to thank Parris. I want to thank everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Roy. All the best to you out on the tour, and we'll see you in New York in a couple days.
All right, homie.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I've said it before.
There he is.
I've said it before about Roy and that day when we recorded. It was just like such a great thing, And I also didn't mention like when the day ended, or not the day. I went back over to his house the next day, after we realized that it was all okay, and he just like popped a thumb drive out of his computer and handed it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's this?" He goes, "Oh, it's the session. It's the Pro Tools session," which I wasn't too familiar with, digital recording at that time. So I was just like, okay. I took this thumb drive and I just threw it in my desk here, this desk that I'm sitting at, and it sat in my drawer for, I'd say, 5 years.
Wow, that long.
Because I actually got back to New York and I posted that picture of me and Roy that you have on Facebook, and my drummer saw it, and I think he got a little like rattled because I posted it like in the studio tracking with Roy Mayorga, and then and because I had recorded a bunch of songs, Chaos Magic and Skateboard Fight, all those songs had been tracked for almost a year to a click. I recorded all the bass and guitar to a click, and my drummer had been sitting with them for like a year, and he just didn't play to them. And I would always ask him, like, why don't you play on them? But anyway, when he saw this picture of me and Roy on Facebook, when I got back to New York, I had an email from him saying, with one of the songs with drums on it, like really excellent drums, of course, because he's an excellent drummer. And Roy, when I was in LA, I'd spoken to Roy, and he said to me, if you have all these songs tracked, he goes, just send them to me, and I'll play drums on them and send them back to you. And I was like, okay, great. When I get home, I'll send them to you. And when I got home and I saw that song recorded by Cobbs, and it was so good, I just said, wow, I feel kind of guilty because, I've been playing with Cobbs for a while. I was just disappointed that he hadn't played on any of the tracks yet. But when he did, then I felt a little guilty, and I called up Roy, and I was like, all right, he played on one of the tracks, so I'm going to give him a little bit, cut him some slack, and see if he'll play on the other ones. And so that ended the whole thing of me and Roy doing more stuff at that time, because then I started playing with Cobbs. I played with Cobbs for like, I'd say 3 years, and we didn't end up recording the drums to the rest of those songs for like another 2.5 years because I just couldn't get him to do it. But he finally did it, and then we stopped playing together. And yeah, that's Cobbs on the right, fucking awesome drummer. Then we stopped playing together because of the pandemic and all that stuff. And I didn't speak to him for years. And when I was putting the album together, everything was done, and I just felt like if I just put one more song on the album, it would be more complete. And then I remembered that session that I had with Roy, and I just popped the drive out of my drawer, and I took it down to the studio, and we plugged it in, and we messed with it to make it sound like the rest of the album, and it fit in perfectly, even though it has a completely different feel than the rest of the album. And I was really happy, and I'm eternally grateful to Roy for that afternoon.
Cool. And moving ahead to the future, hopefully you'll be able to do some more stuff with him.
That would be nice. He's a very busy fellow.
He's a very busy guy and a real consummate professional. And yes, Darren, Roy was the drummer in Stone Sour, yeah, and he was in Hell Yeah and Amoebics for a while, and Nausea, which is where me and Parris really know him from, is the back in the days, the whole Nausea, the Nausea thing is where me and Parris really.
It's funny when I see pictures of Roy from back then, I always think, I know that kid. Oh wait, that's Roy.
Yeah, right.
Wait,
I have one more Nausea picture of him that I didn't post when he was on, but this is how Parris and I kind of. This is Roy and Vic, who's been on the show, Vic Venom, but this was, they always looked gray. They were like a gray looking band. It was just dark. They were just a gray band,
Like all of us, we never saw the sunlight.
Yeah, for sure. So there you go. So you want to, what do you say we walk through Skateboard Fight and break it down a little bit?
That sounds great.
Now I know you were kind enough to send me kind of like a making of video. Should we go with that? Does it make sense to go with that initially?
I mean, I guess for the people who haven't seen, anything you want is fine.
Let's let me play a little of the video first, and then we'll do the making of.
Cool.
Sorry, video's acting weird today. Weird.
Okay.
There you go. All right, here we go. Okay, so that sets the table a little bit. Let's look a little bit of the making of video, and feel free to chime in, and I'll pause it, and I'm sure we'll have something to talk about. So let's start with this.
Well, the reason I started with this is actually the making of Chaos Magic, because I learned something this day. You can pause it right there.
Okay.
That's the camera. Now I wanted to get these like really, really high shots, and I didn't, really have the gear. And one day, that kid that you just saw, he was the only other person helping me, and his name is Scott. So we made basically this entire video just me and him, or me and Barbara.
And excuse me, this is the Williamsburg Bridge.
That's the Williamsburg Bridge.
The Williamsburg Bridge, correct? Okay.
And so one day, me and Scott, during the pandemic, we were in the backyard, and I had this thing, that pole there, which is like a telescoping pole that has like a string on it, and at the end it has clippers, and you use it to like cut trees and stuff. And we were up there cutting trees, and the thing is like 30 feet long. And I said to Scott, man, I was like, man, I wish we can get the camera up this high. And
Right.
he goes, oh no, we could never put it on that thing. It'll snap. But as you can see, there's like metal piping on the thing. So me and Scott, we took all this metal piping. Like if you stop right there, oh, you can see it. Stop right there. That's actually the shot. Stop right there, because the audio actually right here is going to be important once I finish explaining. But we took this piping and we clamped it to this thing. And then Scott, I wish I could have shot this. The weight of the camera is quite heavy. So Scott had to, like, you can even look at the shot. He had to climb up on the fence and then scale that fence, lifting the camera as he did. He was basically climbing up the bridge so we could get the camera high enough so the weight of it wouldn't bend that thing and snap. So we finally got it freed up. And then,
so as it went up, he sort of tethered it to the bridge.
Yeah, and he was climbing up like that.
Right
crazy.
there, I see that.
Of course, there were no cops or anything. So, and then we clamped it all down and set the shot. And then some of the only sound that's valuable is about to come up. It's me explaining what the shot will be.
So I'm gonna stand here, here, and here. But first, I'm gonna come down on my bike and go around where I'm gonna stand later, and it'll be fucking cool.
And that's the shot. You can stop right there. You know, this to me is, you know, a prime example of, you know, you have to have a vision in advance. You know, and nothing in my videos are by accident, as you know. You know, you always come in with a clear plan and a clear vision. And I knew exactly what it was going to be. This shot took hours. Like I had to stand in the first position, the one closest to the camera. And then I had to do like 4 or 5 takes there, and the camera can't move. And then I moved to the second position where I played bass. I had to change my clothes and change the instruments and do that 4 or 5 takes, and then go to the third position, change my clothes.
So just to reiterate, in pre-production, you had to absolutely map out where you were standing, you know, and you had to conceptualize, this is kind of where as you can see in the shot here, this is where I'm cutting and pasting, this is where I'm cutting and pasting, and this
right.
and now I'm not that, I'm familiar but not that familiar. There can be no overlap, is that right?
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
So what I did was, like, when I stood there and played the bass, like you can see in this spot, I took chalk and I drew an X under where I'm standing, which we call making a mark. And then all the spots where I planned to stand, I'm standing over a mark, like basically an X. You can pause it right there?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could pause it where the image is right there. And then, so the first thing I shot was the bicycle. So I knew where all the X's were, so I just came down the bridge and I swerved around the X's so I wouldn't overlap with myself when I eventually stood there. So this shot, we did this one shot. It took us all night long. We shot from midnight till 5 in the morning, you know, because I had to keep moving from spot to spot. And, you know, I mean, I think this is interesting to show, just to show the amount of work and preparation that goes into this kind of thing, even just getting up to the bridge. I mean, you know, if you like it, I liken it back to when we did Punishment. Yeah. And, you know, when people see a film crew navigate the problems that they do, it seems easy. Expertise makes things look easy, but you have to have this vision first, a methodical vision, and then the planning, which Drew did, you did, you know, like for example, like when we went up onto the Brooklyn Bridge for the Punishment video, you know, we had been shooting by the side of the river. And you had planned out the day that we had to shoot down by the river for a certain amount of time. And then, you know, because a company move, which is what we call it, going from the river to the bridge, is an astronomical task. I mean, you know, the time planning, the time estimates for equipment breakdown, loading the trucks, moving the trucks to the bridge, parking the trucks, unloading the gear, transporting the gear up to the middle of the bridge. And I think about this because I had to do all this with this video too. But that was just me and Scott. when we did Punishment, we must have had 50 dudes hustling stuff and 100, extras or whatever, and cameras. And I remember when we did the Scout Day, me, you, and Greg, and I guess the Grip, we got up there and we were trying to discuss how we were going to do those shots of all the kids walking down the bridge and Biohazard walking down the bridge. And the gaffer, the Grip was like, we have to have a Western dolly, which is like this big flat wooden dolly with rubber wheels. And I was going to squat down on it with the Steadicam, So we had to get all that gear and plan that, because we were going to shoot Danny later that night. So
I'm trying to dig up the Biohazard Punishment video that I have somewhere as you're talking. So go ahead.
The reason I'm pointing this out is because, when we were shooting down by the river, like Evan singing by the edge of the river and all the people, like we had so much to shoot that day, but it was planned out, because the vision was clear and it was planned out so perfectly that, and we could have shot there for a week. There was so much good stuff to shoot. But at some point during the day, Drew turns to me, Drew Stone, who's right here, turned to me and he says, "That's a wrap on this location." And that's a message to me. Because I don't care how, that's not one more shot. We're not going to get one more shot. We are stopping here or else we're not going to get the shots on the bridge. And
here we go. I found it.
So we're shooting all that stuff, right? And then
hold on, let me get the sound out. Yeah.
We're shooting all this stuff, which looks awesome. So normally you would say to yourself, damn, let's just keep shooting this. This looks awesome. Yeah. But we had a plan. The next thing on the slate that we planned was the Brooklyn Bridge. So we had to get from this location, which was
this location, let me just say, this location was an abandoned building in Red Hook, Brooklyn, that was a wasteland at the time, which is now, this was, now, didn't we do the bridge the next morning?
No. We did it at sunset.
Why do I think that we did the bridge like first thing in the morning? No,
it was at sunset.
What, we just said like everybody over to the bridge now?
No, we loaded up the trucks and we drove over there, and it was all part of the plan. But even all you have to do is look at the light on the side of their faces.
Yeah,
it's on the left side of their faces when the sun goes across that side of the sun's never. If it was a sunrise, the sun would have been on the right side of their faces.
And I do now that you're
but the point is to get that shot, to get those Brooklyn Bridge shots. That sunset only lasts for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get there 5 minutes late. We couldn't get there 10 minutes late. We were on a schedule. We had to get there in time to go all the way up the bridge, get everything broken out, get the Western dolly up there, get the Steadicam belt, get the camera on the Steadicam, line everybody up just in time to be able to shoot for 10 minutes.
Right.
That's planning.
And the shot of Danny Schuler, where is that? I know it's in there somewhere.
Well, that was scheduled for next because, and Drew, you know how I know we shot this at sunset, and you know how I know we shot this at sunset and not at sunrise? Because we shot Danny right afterwards.
Right. That's what I'm looking for. This shot of Danny Schuler right here with just the snare drum, right? Yeah. This was correct me if I'm wrong, this was the last shot we did of the Punishment video.
That's right.
It was just him. It was just him with a snare. And I do remember this. The cymbals are like abnormally angled in according to the way you lensed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had to rush this mad rush to get up to the bridge to shoot this. And then the sun went down like 15 minutes later. So, and then the mad rush was over, and it was just like, okay, now we stop. And now we gotta wait for the sun to completely go away, so it's dark, to shoot Danny. So then everybody cleared out, and I remember I had seen this Red Hot Chili Peppers video, give it away now. And there were all these shots like with the camera on the ground, like looking up between their legs. And I just remember that there was a shot of the drums, and it was just the snare drum, and I was like,
That's right.
I want to do that. That's what I wanted to do. And so we basically did the same thing with Danny. I remember Danny the whole time was like nodding his head, like, why can't I have my whole drum kit? I was like, because it'll be in the way of the camera. I just want to look up at the snare. People will think your drums are there. Anyway.
Those were the days, right? I remember how many videos we did back in the day where we had to explain to the artist, like, it's make believe, and how many times do we have to explain to artists, no, you can't play through your gear as we're doing playback for the video. You can't do that. You have to fake it. You have to perform to playback. It's not right. We're faking it. It's phony. It's bullshit. We're not about that. Da, 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 da. Jesus fucking Christ. Will you just let us do what the fuck we do?
Well, what you just quoted was the first morning of the Punishment video when we showed up, and Biohazard's crew showed up with amps and like PA and we were like, what's all this for? And they were like, we're not going to do the video the way you want. We're going to do a live video. And I was like,
no, we're not.
I guess to a layman, people who have zero experience making a video, have never even been in a video before, they think you can just like wing it or something. But that's when I laid down the law, and I was like, you have to have a vision, you have to stick to it, and you have to stick to the schedule. Every shot that people see in those videos, as chaotic as they look, they were planned. Yeah. The whole thing was planned out. It was mapped. I'm sorry, Drew, let me finish.
Yeah.
The whole thing is mapped out. You got to, talk about chaos magic. That's like, finding the magic in the chaos, making it look like chaos. And that's what expertise is. Expertise is making something look easy. But, that's why I also stress the thing about getting up to the bridge. You don't realize how every second of the day is planned out. And that's why I stressed when you said to me, that's a wrap on this location, we got to get up to the bridge. We got to get up to the bridge, not 5 minutes late, not 10 minutes late, because there is no 5 minutes late for a sunset. You had to get those trucks loaded, get them parked, get all the gear onto the sidewalk, and get 50 dudes to carry all this shit up the bridge, which is a half a mile, to get to the spot where we're going to shoot for 15 minutes, and we can't be late, So, again, you could see how a layman with zero experience might say to themselves, they could stand by and watch experts do their thing and hear those experts discuss things and then be like, yes, that sounds good, and think they're participating, but they don't realize the weeks that led up to it. None of this stuff happens on a whim. All this stuff is planned. And this video, these Aggros videos are testament to that, because I went up on the bridge, not with a crew of people.
Sorry.
I went up there with one guy, and sometimes I went up there by myself. Like if you look at a bunch of these shots, like all these shots of the instruments, I was completely by myself. I would frame up or that shot of Chuck, that was just me and Chuck, or that shot right there that you're looking at. That shot with this, you could stop right here.
Hold on,
any of those shots that you see of the signs, and I'm in the background skateboarding by, like that, I'm by myself. I was by myself. I went, I went out to Queens.
So what did you do? You went and set up that camera rig by yourself? You had the camera rig, and remotely you turn the camera on and you do a couple takes?
Yeah.
There you go.
And in the making of video that you have, I show actually how I did that.
Right.
But this is great. I love this little explanation here, because even Scott, the guy that was assisting me, I wasn't talking to the camera. I was talking to him. I was explaining how, the camera can't move. I'm going to stand in all these positions, and then we're going to shoot it again and again and again. We're going to be shooting this same shot for the next 5 hours.
Sure.
And he was like, just for one shot? And I was like, well, you say just for one shot, but when the shot pops up on the screen, I'm sure most people don't perceive the effort that goes in. And I've spoken to a lot of people who ask me who all those other guys are. Right. They don't realize that that's all me. I'm the only person in the video until the guitar solo happens, and then Chuck Lenahan's in the video.
Hey, let me interject. Billy Pilgrim says you two should do a master class. I just want to interject that we are in fact talking about, Parris and I, about doing an event at the Nighthawk Cinema in Brooklyn where we screen and break down many of the music videos that we've done together, including the Biohazard videos, Typo Negative Black #1, Onyx Slam, Onyx Shifting, so forth. So that's something, hopefully, we've talked about it, and we're looking to schedule that probably after the summer. I think that would be, the Nighthawk Cinemas would love to have us. So we're going to be doing that at some point. We're going to kind of walk through it and break it all down and basically do kind of a master class, I just also wanted to say that when we're talking about the Biohazard thing and stuff like that, is that for people out there that this was during the golden age of music videos, and like you could get away with a lot. And when we had permits, we would get a permit, and when somebody would complain, we'd be like, fuck you, we have a permit. We were fucking brutal. And we were like, fuck you, we have a permit. And back then, what we would rent is the playback package, right? Remember that? It was 2 huge speakers, 2 little speakers, and like it was loud. And we used to show up and it was loud. It was a couple years after that. And I think I don't remember exactly what the incident was. I think Hype Williams did a video or something. And after that, they didn't allow the playback speakers outside anymore. You had to have, people would be wearing earbuds, right? People would be doing playback with the earbuds. But when we were doing Onyx, Slam, and Biohazard and Typo Negative in the middle of the night in Central Park, we had this huge playback system, and it was loud. And the drummers were incessantly complaining that they couldn't hear themselves. Remember, whether it was Sal from Typo Negative or Danny Schuler, it was a common, I can't hear myself. And, you would dead down the drums, but it was always louder. Good shit.
And we always shot, like every treatment I wrote would always start like, it's a urban wasteland at night, and we always shot from sundown to sunup. We even edited from sundown till sunup. Our editor, Mitch Brody, would always be complaining because I would always say, I want to come in to edit at 6 p.m. and edit until 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because that was just I was a night bird. But
you guys were nighttime guys for sure. I've always been an early morning guy,
I think the only video we ever shot during the day was Proper Dose.
Yeah.
In LA. Right. Every
under
other
the Santa Monica Pier, when we shot under the Santa Monica Pier. Yeah, because everything else was you're right. Now that I think about it, Typo Negative, Shades of Gray is another one. Like
Ghetto Girl was shot during the day.
Ghetto Girl that was shot in Tompkins Square Park. You know. How about I got this. Where's the other one? Oh, here we go. Just wait. Just real quick. In the middle of the night. God, we And remember when we used to go location scouting? If it smelled enough like human feces and urine, we'd be like, oh, this is definitely the place for us to shoot.
Me and Drew would look at each other and go, yeah, this is it.
This is it. Because for people out there, we would scout these fucking locations, these like wretched locations, and it just got to the point where we look at it, we go into a place, and it would just if the stench of human excrement was overwhelming, we'd be like, oh yeah, this is it.
I mean, well, I ended up shooting all the Aggros videos in the middle of the night just because I was alone and I just needed to be to not have anybody around. And to do a shot like this, you could never do a shot like this now. Because I did this during the pandemic,
right?
When me and Scott would be up on the bridge for hours,
right,
and not see anybody go by. And you can't really tell right there, but on the right behind that fence is the highway. And normally you'd see cars shooting by, headlights going by, but you don't see a single headlight going by because we stood on the bridge. I remember one time standing on the bridge and we were up there for like 45 minutes and I didn't see a single car go over the bridge. So we had this like exclusivity. We were able to, we went up there with we would push up onto the bridge with, you know, with all this gear and just spread out. And no cop ever came. Nobody came. But and that was
it was an interesting time in the human in the evolution of planet Earth. You know, it really was. You could do. People say the pandemic. You know, a lot of interesting good things came out of the pandemic too, including that and including this show. You know, the show we wouldn't be sitting here right now. You know, and right there you go, there you go. So,
and it's funny with, you know, with stuff like this, you know, like I put that shot of Scott in the monitor that you just saw the shot of Scott, because that's how I shot the video.
Yeah.
I would just frame up Scott doing whatever I was going to be doing, whether it be a close up or holding the guitar. And I would just frame up the shot with Scott, and then we would switch places. So there's no camera movement. You know, even though it's a very active video, there's no camera movement except for like there when the camera is mounted on my bike. And I just showed a picture of my bike. If you let this run, you can see how I mounted the camera on the bike. So I would have to mount the whole. I would have to. There you go. I would have to build this rig, which is really, really heavy. And where the mirror is on the right, you can't probably tell, but that's a light that I actually attached to the mirror, so you wouldn't be able to tell that I had a light on the camera. You know, lighting my face. So the camera was pointing at my face, and this is the light. And also I bought all these like little, like you see that blue light and that red light. I bought tons of these lights, cover the thing. But I would have to build this, and I lived like 2 miles from the bridge. And then I'd have to ride my bike from my house to the bridge. With that whole thing built just to do that one shot of my face.
Wow. And I just want to pause it on that shot, on that bike shot. It's coming up, I know. Let me pause it so people could see really what we're talking about here, because it's really nicely done. There you go.
Yeah, that's the shot.
It's really nicely lit.
I mean, the key to it is if you look at my right eye, there's a little ping of light in my eye.
Yeah,
that's what that thing on my mirror did, and that's right. And that little glow on the right side of my face. That's what I needed. Because every time most people don't know that, but you watch a TV show, you'll never see a shot of a person on a television show without what we call an eye light. Right. So that little ping of light is the most important thing, because if that wasn't there, my face would look dead to you, and you wouldn't know why. And it's because you've been trained from watching television that if you don't see a ping in someone's eyes, they don't look like vibrant. So that's what that one light. So I had to set that whole thing up at my house, drive up to the bridge 2 miles to do this shot like that.
And also this sort of lighting has become somewhat easier in the past, 20, 30 years with LED lights and some of the smaller lights. Whereas, back when we were rubbing sticks and stones together in the cave, it was hard to do something like this. That's why I stress
that whole thing about moving from the side of the river in the punishment video.
Yeah.
Is we had massive lights, like lights that were like, gigantic lights on gigantic stands with gigantic sandbags set up all over the place. I mean, it just looks like a bunch of maniacs in a warehouse in that thing, but that was lit with probably 10 lights that Greg set up. So
we spent the whole morning.
As soon as Stone says to me, Parris, that's a wrap on this location, that means that 10 grips go in, and then they lower these lights down. They take out these giant things. They put them into cases. All the stands are wrapped. They're folded up. They're put on a truck. I mean, this takes like 45 minutes just to get shit broken down before they even load the truck.
And you're reminding me now you're reminding me that setup took time. That room, to set up that room in punishment where the cameras move, that took like all morning. I remember as we were doing stuff in available daylight, right? We were shooting the kids skit, all this. We had most of the crew in there setting up that what we call like the money, like the big money shot, Yeah.
And then when it's over, they got to break it down. That's a big deal. Yeah, but your point to the fact that I was able to make these videos basically by myself, or with Scott's help, or with Barblin's help. Barblin came out and did most of the skateboard fight video with me. But I always just figured out ways to shoot stuff in
Is
a
this
more
a commentary
economic
to
way.
your grip friends?
Yes. My grip friends are crying because if any of my grip friends are watching right now and they see like the spring clamps and the tape holding the camera down, they'd be like, Parris, what are you doing? Are you crazy?
Right.
But you know, like, because that camera
setup?
cost me like $10,000, and if that had fallen from any of those precarious mounting positions that I put them on, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, there you go.
Look, so right here, this is how I did the signs, the street signs, and I'll start by saying, right now, you could stop it right there. This is about 3:30 in the morning, and I'd already gotten the idea that I wanted to do this street sign thing because, you know, in the other videos I wore like Cheap Trick T-shirts and bands that Motorhead T-shirts, you know, kind of drawing attention to my influences and music that I grew up loving. And I also thought that I started thinking to myself, you know, with this third video, Skateboard Fight, I wanted the video to continue what the first two videos had done, to make it feel like it was the same night that the other two videos were shot, just somewhere else in the city. And, you know, but I also had this idea of how I wanted to pay tribute to New York musicians. And so I realized that there were these street signs all over the city. So I got this idea that I would go shoot them somehow, but I didn't know how I was going to do it exactly. But I had that experience of putting the camera up so high on the bridge that I thought, okay, I'll do it this way. So one night I was shooting the television show Evil, and we wrapped at about 2:30. We were out on Staten Island, and I remember, we'd been working for 13 hours. It was like on a Friday night. So I've been working all week, worked for 13 hours. We wrap at 2:30 in the morning, and then I run up to the grip truck and I say, "Can I borrow a 2K rolling stand and a C stand and a Cardellini clamp and all this equipment and one Estero light?" And they were like, "Why? What do you want that for?" I said, "I'm going to go shoot something." They were like, "When?" I said, "Right now." And they were like, "You're crazy. You just worked for 13 hours and you're going to go shoot something?" I go, "Yeah." So they gave me the gear. I loaded it in the back of my car. I drove over to the Wu-Tang sign, which was the first sign that I shot for the video. And now that video, which you were just about to play, will show exactly how I did it. Wow. So that's one stand extended as long as it can with another stand stuck into it, the one light, and that's my camera. It's got to be 25 feet in the air.
I mean, when you extend the stand, it gets sketchy. It starts getting real sketchy. We've all been there, you know.
And that's the shot. You know, I have this monitor, so I can and a video transmitter, so I can transmit the image from the camera to the monitor, so I could see the shot. So I could just basically pan the stands to get the shot. And I got the camera up there 4 or 5 times and didn't quite get the frame I wanted because I wanted to see those, you know, the red light behind him. So I had to take it down and put it up. One of these videos will show me doing it really fast because it's really, really hard to raise those stands with the camera like that up there. It was exhausting. I mean, I was dripping with sweat, and cops kept pulling up. They would pull up in front of me and look at me and like, what are you, like, wondering what I was doing. And I kept waiting for them to get out of the car and stop me, but there was nobody around. You know, it was in the middle of the night, and so I guess I wasn't.
Where is this location? The Wu-Tang district? Like, where is this location?
Staten Island, of course,
right.
The land of Wu. And there's nothing around there.
It's
over there. And
really? Was it a little scary being out in the land of Wu at 3 a.m. with just you and some gear? I would think so.
It was. It's funny because like I would be standing there like heaving this camera up as high as I could get it, and then when a car would pull up, and you know, and the window would come down, like a tinted window would come down. Some guy would stick his head out the window and go, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm taking a picture of the sign." He goes, "What sign is it?" I said, "It's the Wu-Tang district sign." And he would go, "All this just to take a picture of that sign?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Respect." in the drive-thru. And that happened like 4 or 5 times. Same thing with the Run DMC sign, because that's out in Queens. But yeah, I mean, you can see how high the camera is. And, you know, I think I finished, you can even see the light, the sky is already starting to lighten a little bit. But I shot until about 5:30 in the morning, and then, you know, went home and went to bed. And that's
what camera are you using here?
A7S III. And you know,
is that a red?
No, it's a Sony. It's
a Sony.
Excuse me. It's specifically designed for low light photography.
I see.
So I bought it because I knew I was going to shoot my video at night, and there's the finished shot. And I think I have maybe 6 street signs in the video, and each one of those signs was shot one night per sign, because it takes, you know, I have to drive to wherever they are, you know, like the Charlie Parker sign. It's interesting, the Charlie Parker sign sequence is very cool because I skateboard up to it and the sparks of my skateboard all happen. But the actual shots of me on the skateboard, I shot in front of my apartment, not actually under the Charlie Parker sign. I just made it look like it. I guess if you show more of the video, the actual video. And this sign right here is the Duke Ellington sign. It didn't actually make it into the video. I just somehow didn't feel connected, you know, because I'm a little bit connected to all the other artists that I have videos. Sure. Like in the video, like Charlie Parker, I actually own a publishing company called Charlie Parker Music, and my dad knew Charlie Parker and recorded him. And my dad was friends with Parker's widow, and they formed Charlie Parker Music together. And the Run DMC sign, obviously, you and I did a Run DMC video together. And the Beastie Boys, both Adam Yauch and Mike Diamond. Yeah, both Adam Yauch and Mike Diamond were potential Cro-Mags members at one point and friends of ours for a long time. And yeah, so in Wu-Tang, I shot Method Man on Blue Bloods. So I felt like I felt initially like I was going to have
a connection there.
Little connection, but then it started getting a little broader. Oh, and Biggie, there's a Biggie sign, and you and I did a Biggie video.
Yep.
So there is some. So now here's another example of, like, you know, stripped down crew. That's me, Chuck, and Barblin shooting the entire guitar solo, guitar duel thing. You know, and I have the monitor right there by the left hand of my face, so I can make sure that I don't get into Chuck's frame too much. You know, I just wanted to be able to see myself on the right side of the frame, but I didn't want to cover Chuck, so I just have the monitor right there so I won't get in his way. And you can't hear right now, but I'm yelling, "Close your mouth, Chuck," because, you know, a lot of, you know, people aren't used to being on camera, and they do normal things that they do in life, like they scratch their nose, they open their mouth, they do odd things. Yeah. So you got to be sure to.
And here's that footage. Let me just rewind it a little bit, but this is that footage.
Yeah, but actually those.
It's a great sequence, man. Well shot.
Thank you. The shots that are above, from up there like that, that was shot 6 months later than all these shots, all the regular shots of, like, the guitars and of Chuck over my shoulder.
Wow.
Because Chuck was in town playing a Carnivore AD gig, and I think he got out of the gig at like midnight, and he met me at one in the morning.
Right.
At this location, you know, and I had everything set up already, and we just shot him for maybe 2 hours, and you could tell he was exhausted. I mean, he traveled wherever he had to travel to get to the gig. He played a gig, and then he comes out to work with me, and so I just shot as much as I can get with him. But of course, you know, a couple of months later when he came back to town, I was like, "Hey, Chuck, can you meet me at the base of the bridge again?" And that time, all we did was those super high shots. You know, so you get the pieces. You know, this shot of the Space Ace pin. This is funny. This is how I did it. So, like, you see that shot of the Space Ace pin, and it looks like I'm, you know, those are street lights going by on the pin, I made it look like there were street lights, car headlights going by because we're standing on the side of the road. But this is actually how I shot the pin. And then I went on to show that, well, we could talk about that one later. That's from Sk8bored. I mean, that's from Chaos Magic, where my license plate, I couldn't figure out a way to mount the camera on the bridge. So I set up a green screen in my apartment and then shot my license plate. And then I went up onto the bridge on my skateboard and I just skateboarded down the bridge with the camera at about the height that the license plate would have been. And then I, removed the green screen and stuck the shot of me riding on my skateboard. So you just got to figure out these practical ways.
And be very patient.
And be very patient,
Can I ask you?
The reason I want to stress why you got to be patient, if you look at my videos, every shot counts. There's not one filler shot in any of these videos. Every shot has some kind of visual, like, footprint, like all like that, like this, that one, stop right there. I love these shots of Chuck.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Let me get back to that. How's that?
I would go to the next one because the next one actually has more elements in it. Keep going. It's about to happen. Right there.
Got it.
Now you probably just saw the birds go by in the moon, but when I shot this, or even
yeah, look at those. Yeah, how about that?
So the birds kind of go by in one, and then they finish in the other.
Yep.
But when you look at Chuck there, if you can go back to that shot of Chuck. I know it's difficult to stop, but
wait, I think
it's right there.
Yeah, hold on, I got it.
Yeah. And that one.
Yeah.
So when you look at a shot like this, for example, that smoke over his right shoulder, that's not there. I added that there. And the moon is not there. That was just a black sky. But I knew I was going to put that moon in there and the color temperature of that moon. So I had to light Chuck to look like he was lit by this moon that wasn't there. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I know you understand what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to explain it to people. So when you see a picture like this, and it's also, you probably don't realize it's raining. Like I dragged Chuck out to the river, in the middle of the night in the rain, and I'm lighting him, and I'm trying to envision that the moon is going to be in the background, and that there's going to be a flash of lightning on his right hand side. So I have to light his back with white light, so it'll look like the light from the lightning. And that's my nephew, John Mayhew.
That's
and this is what I was going to tell you about. See, this shot right here was not shot when I shot the overhead shot of me coming into the frame with the sign in it. So I shot all this stuff like this, all these extra shots I shot in front of my apartment.
Right.
But if you go back and show that sequence again, it'll make more sense. So when the sequence first starts, this is one shot, with me entering the frame, but all the rest of the shots from the video were shot in front of my apartment. Because, you didn't have to have any more reference to the sign. I'm looking up at it, so I'm looking at it, and then I show it. So that sequence was shot on 2 separate nights. And that shot of the building, like these shots right now of the building, that was another, the Chrysler building, that was another thing. I was shooting the TV show, and we were shooting in Manhattan, and we ended in the middle of the night, and I just went across the street and set up the camera and shot this shot of the Chrysler building reflection in a mirror. This is actually the reflection of the Chrysler building and that smoke in a window. And that shot of the Empire State Building is a still photo that I took with my iPhone that I composited in, and then I had the explosion happening in front of it. So I just built a lot of these shots. like obviously that shot, all the thing with the smoke and the fire in the background, I built all that after the fact. I just love doing this stuff. It's just so much fun, you know. I would spend as much time as it took. Like stop right there. That
whoa, hold on. I sort of was going back.
Cool.
Go ahead.
I was just to point out all the elements to the shot.
Go
like,
ahead.
Right,
Go ahead. No, I rewound it a little.
that's a good one. Oh, there it is. You can go
Tell
back
me
a
when
hair.
to stop. Go back a hair.
Oh, yeah, the shot, that one right there. So like when you're looking at this shot, you know, you could see the Aggros flag hanging from that pole. See right above my head?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks out of focus and all that stuff. You know, I put that in there. That I obviously didn't hang that from a pole, and the smoke that's happening on the side of the frame there, I added that as well.
So hold on. So So in summary, kids, this is what happens when Parris Mayhew doesn't have a Drew Stone around to to reel him in it all. Like he mentioned before, back in the day when we did all this stuff, I was the guy that was like, no, you have to stop. We have to. This is what happens when he's left to his own means. He spends 6 months making a fucking music video.
Well, that was Drew Stone's favorite quote in the edit. It's only a music video. And I don't want to I also don't want to marginalize the value of that voice, because without that voice saying that's a wrap on this location, for example, we never would have gotten that Brooklyn Bridge shot. Because it was scheduled, and I could have, which I've done many times. I've said, I don't care about that. I want to shoot more of this, and then he just adjusts the schedule. But if you want to have a video that has multiple elements, you got to know when to stop. And Drew's major. Drew would always schedule it out. I had no idea how long all this stuff took, because Drew would talk with the cinematographer. He would talk with the grips. He would say, how long is it going to take to wrap this stuff? How long is it going to take to load this truck? How long is it going to take to do all this stuff? And then he maps out the day. And so he basically looks at my treatment and says, I know this is what you want to do, but if you want to do this, you only have this much time, because this is what everybody says it's going to take. And then we have to travel, and it takes us. So like that voice that says, stop now, it's not a marginalizing voice. It's the voice that lets you get more.
Well, we always as we did it, we got more acclimated to the process, and what was always labor intensive is when we had to move locations. You know, when you have to shut everything down, put everything in the truck, and move from point A to point B. It brings in the chaos factor, you know, the unknown elements, like so we sort of learned that, we've learned that once we sort of, get to a location and set up, anything we can do within that, in the perimeter there, is way easier than let's pack it up and move cross town, so we got, imagine that. Drew Stone, the voice of reason and logic. Imagine that.
Absolutely. I mean, even when plans went awry, I remember when we were doing the King's X video, and we were there in the middle of the night, and it was like 20 degrees below zero. It was the worst night, coldest night in my memory. We're all out there, and we lost the location.
Did you?
Yeah. Because remember when we ended up shooting on that loading dock, you scrambled and ran around the neighborhood and found that loading dock, and you came up to me and you were like, Parris, I know you want to shoot, with your calmest voice, I know you want to shoot here. We can't shoot here. Come with me. And you walked me around the corner, and I was all grumbling and stomping my feet, and you walked me up and you just went like this. How's this? And I was like, I can work with that.
And this is a shot from the end of the King's X Dogman video. And like Parris said, it was, I never remember a colder night. It was so bitterly cold. and you fucking show up in shorts like you always used to do back then. You'd show up totally unprepared for the weather. And and that's why if you look at the King's X Dogman video, kids, you see the smoke coming out of their mouths because we basically had them in a camper, in a trailer, and we just run them out to do the take. It was that cold. It was brutally cold.
And at the beginning of the video, I remember like pulling the band aside and saying, listen, we're going to be here for hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours. Whatever you're wearing now in this first shot is what you're going to be wearing all night. So bundle up.
Right.
And they were like, no, this is how we want. And I remember the drummer just like had a leather jacket and he was such a trooper because like you can even see in the video when he's playing in the close-ups, his jaw like just like rattling. So cold. And they were the nicest, most cooperative. They were
good sports.
They didn't complain once.
They were good sports. And I think in retrospect, looking at the 20 videos that we did, I think working with King's X was one of the highlights. Just working with a group that was so professional and just so well natured.
Absolutely.
Because they all weren't like that. That's
definitely not.
Most of them weren't. Well,
let's see what we can get out of the rest of that making of thing.
Yeah, here we go. Hold on, let me rewind this a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually talking on this.
Yeah.
Star Wars style green screen action. And there's the green screen that Laurent left behind when he went to Europe. So I'll try using that. Heading up the Williamsburg Bridge. It's about day 19 of my music video shoot, Chaos Magic. I had someone helping me for a while, but he bailed. So I'm continuing to shoot plates for some green screen photography I did this afternoon of the license plate on my bike. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
and we're still at it. Hey, I need to take a sponsor break.
Okay.
Real quick. But for everybody out there, we're gonna continue. We're not really got a time constraint today, so the show's gonna go a bit long. We're gonna talk about a couple of things in the next hour, including Parris's relationship with this man and a show that some of us love very much, that being The Walking Dead and specifically Dead City. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. Parris, let's take a break. Let me get some sponsorship happening. I'll see you in a few.
Right.
That's right. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Let's hear from some sponsors. Get some questions ready for Parris. This is a good one. Here we go.
NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. Specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
Video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young reader section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars! We are New York Hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
Will that be cash or in debt?
Do you mean debit?
Yes. Sorry. Another eternally satisfied customer.
Hey, Guys, Vlad from Organic Grill. As you can see, we're in new location on West 3rd Street, right by Blue Note and Comedy Central. The place is bigger, kitchen is bigger, we have more varieties, more food. We are looking forward to treat you guys with great dishes. All Hardcore Chronicles, welcome to Organic Grill. We are going to serve all the events as we usually do, and we are happy to see you guys.
Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and them on Facebook and
Here we go, yo. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles, and we're back. Our guest today is our old friend Parris Mayhew. We're getting down. We're going to go a little late today or a little early, depending on where you are. And we're going to have a good time with this. So get some questions ready, too. You could ask us in a little bit, not just about Aggros, but if you want to ask anything about the music videos we did together or anything else, feel free to. I want to mention a couple of upcoming shows. 1 week from today, Mr. Mike Score from All Out War, End Rain, and Below the Frost will be on the show. A week after that, Phil Puleo from Cop Shoot Cop, Swans, The Children, and That's Far Enough. Couple days after that, Bob Chipardi, Concrete Marketing. This should be an interesting one. He used to do the Foundations Forum events back in the day. Wednesday, April 10th, Old School Boston Hardcore Represent. Cliff Crochet from The Freeze will be on. This should be an interesting one. Parris Mayhew will remember, of course, John Connolly. Might have to bring Parris on this one for a guest spot, because the first music video that Parris and I ever did together was, in fact, Nuclear Assault Trail of Tears. Sunday, April 14th, John Connolly of Nuclear Assault will be on the show, co-hosted by friend and neighbor Howie Abrams. Sunday, April 28th, Sal and Dan Canzaniera from Electric Frankenstein, the two brothers, will be on. That will be co-hosted by Joel Ghostin. And then Sunday, May 5th, speaking of Typo Negative, Sal will be on. Typo Negative, Life of Agony, River Runs Red, Pale Horse Named Death, King of the Locusts. So lots of great stuff coming up. We'll see you in a week with Mike Score. Want to mention, please support the show. I know a lot of you do already. The show always needs your support. There's a PayPal address there. I want to shout out a couple of new patrons. Kitty, Christopher Park, Michael Boylan, Ty Zembry, Kenny Clark, who we just saw down in San Diego when Incendiary Device played, and Harris F. Carpos. I love that name, F. Carpos. EFKARPOS. Harris F. Carpos. So yeah, thank you, new patrons, and thank you for supporting the show, because this show doesn't just magically. It happens because you support it. So don't be shy, let it fly. Support the show. Join Patreon. Don't be a Hatreon. That said, let's make sure nobody's killing anybody in the chat room. The West Coast shows were good. Thank you. They were really great. Channel 3 took care of us. And we had a great time. We had a great time out west for our first couple of shows. And I did the voiceover for the animated feature film, which was great to do at Paul Russler's studio, who was a guest on the show, Kira from Black Flag's brother. It was a great trip. All right. That said, let's bring our guests back on. Let's clear the deck. And let's bring our guest on, Mr. Parris Mayhew. Boom. That said,
Star Wars.
I got to go shoot another promo with those guys.
I love Devo and Lee from New York Comics.
You know, I was looking for somebody. It was Paulie made a comment about the punishment video that he reminded me of something that I mean, you know, if I could find it.
Yeah, I was just thumbing through the comments. I can't see them as we go. So anybody who's writing, asking me questions, I didn't see them until now. So yeah, maybe we'll address
He
them.
mentioned something. I'm going to give it one more look. Hold on. It was a great. It reminded. Oh, here we go. Here we go. My favorite memory of the punishment video was the first take in the warehouse, all going nuts, and then one of you guys yelled, "Cut!" The music stopped, everyone stopped, awkward silence, and then laughs. I remember that. I totally remember that. It was like the first take we did, everyone went nuts. They like were killing each other. And remember, it was like a ball. It was like a brawl. It was just everyone was beating the shit out of each other. And then we're like, cut. And then everybody stops. And then everybody just started crap. I actually remember that moment.
The camera going around Danny in that circle and like everybody competing for screen time, you know, doing like their moves.
Yeah, it was great. Well, one of the great regrets I have in this life is, you know, I don't have dailies. Like, where are the outtakes from the punishment video? Like, God, I wish the two things that where are the dailies from the punishment video and where are the dailies from Typo Negative Black #1? Like, But you know, we've talked about this. You know, at the time, you know, we dubbed it off on VHS. You think it's who cares if, you know, this is never, why is this taking up space in my studio apartment? I'm just gonna toss this, you know, like, brutal.
I mean, I'm thinking more about the actual film.
Well, the film, I mean, the elements. What did we do with the actual? I guess the elements we handed
to the label.
We gave to the label. Did we give actual? I guess we gave actual film elements.
Yeah, and you know, they probably just throw them away.
Oh yeah.
They don't even keep the 1 inches after a certain amount of time.
Oh no, they because contractually we have to supply the elements in the end. So we gave, you know, we would give them all the elements, the developed film, the you know. But I know, but we always made VHS, you know, dailies because you went home with them with time code. That's what you watched and took your notes on. Those weren't part of the deal. We made those for you to watch and do your homework. So when you went into the edit room with Mitch, you had the time codes to say, cut here, cut, do this, do, you know. So yeah. That video
printer and printing out all those. You remember that video printer thing and print out like all those images with the time code? Right. I remember Brett Ratner coming into the edit room, and we had like all these images of the video like all over the wall, like covering the entire wall. And he walked in and looked at it and was like, "What's that?" And both of us were like, "What do you mean? Doesn't everybody do this?" We just assumed everybody did.
So those that are wondering what we're talking about is my dad in doing his commercials. There was a thing. It was like a deck. It was a deck, and you put in a roll of like thermal paper, and you could press the button, and whatever was on the screen, you would get this blurry, low resolution, black and white printout of it, and like it was a game changer. It was a game changer. So we would sit there, and you know, Parris could press the button, and then you and then cut it out and put it on the board, and you could basically put a storyboard together. But my dad had this deck, you know, at ICM Films for doing commercials, and we would borrow it when we did the music videos. So yeah. There you go. And hey, TNA, shouting out TNF podcast, T and Fuckery podcast. What's up, man? And thank you for doing a super chat. And thank you. And I hope things are going well with your podcast, you know, out there. Did the Facebook feed drop out? Is anybody watching on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm watching.
Yeah. It's a weird day on social media. Paulie says, I have the VHS video of when Punishment debuted on Headbangers Ball. They interviewed it, Evan, and listen, that was a big deal for us when Punishment debuted on Headbangers Ball. I remember that was very exciting for us. Yeah, that was an exciting day. So back to Skateboard Fight, and anything else you want to point out as we go? And let me know if there's an explain. Let me ask you, this sort of guitar lead battle.
Yeah.
You know what? I think it's worth pit stopping here and saying, explain to our people out there kind of your history with Chuck and how he came on your radar screen. I know you guys have been friends a long time and you've done some good work together. You know, how did Chuck Lenahan come across your radar screen?
I mean, when I first saw the Crumbsuckers at CBGB's and was just astonished by how great they were and are. To this day, I still listen to Life of Dreams. It's one of my favorite albums. But, you know, at that time, you know, when my band, the Cro-Mags, was like on the rise, and on our music scene, it seemed like, you know, one band was going to make it, you know, because that's seemed to be the, you know, like the way things were. The only band that made me nervous was the Crumbsuckers, because they just, when they played, it was just like they played way better than everybody else. They had amazing songs. They were just a great band. And for me, the standout part of the band was Chuck. And I became friends with Chuck. Even I went down to CBGB's when they recorded one of their records there, and just would show up hungover at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon and fall asleep on a bench while they were recording. And I remember one time playing at CBGB's and walking off stage, and Chuck was just standing there, and he just looked at me and he said, what scale are you playing in that solo? And he mentioned a song, and I looked at him and I said, scale? What's a scale? And then he like led me off. He was like, you don't know what scales are? And I said, no. And he said, well, there's a major scale and the minor scale. And he goes, come with me. And we went over to the soundboard and we borrowed like a piece of loose leaf paper, and he just took a pen and he drew like guitar necks, like, you know, and he wrote out all the positions of the major scale, and he handed it to me. He goes, start with this, practice it, and then the next time I see you, we'll talk about something else. And he was like the only musician that I ever met that offered me any advice or help or instruction, even anybody I ever played with. And I always thought that was very generous of him. And I did that, and that was the beginning of my education as an actual musician. And it's funny because you have a picture of Chuck on one side, and he is bookshelved on the other side by Mark Piovanetti. And Mark Piovanetti also played a big role in educating me musically. Between Chuck and Mark together, you know, I went from like a blunt object to a thoughtful musician, basically just from my casual acquaintance with them.
And there's a tie-in, of course, Mark Piovanetti on the far right, and you're wearing a Carnivore shirt. You know, Mark was I guess you could call that Carnivore Mark II, you know, after Keith Alexander, the original Carnivore guitar player, played on the first record. You know, Mark came in for the second record. Was the second record Retaliation?
Yes.
Yes. The first record was just Carnivore. Second record was Retaliation. And, you know, there's the great argument as to, you know, people say, which record do you love? You know, some people love that first record. Both records are great, but there's definitely,
Well, Retaliation is a masterpiece. And another tie-in is the artwork for both Carnivore albums and for Life of Dreams by the Crumbsuckers were all done by Sean Taggart, who also did this logo for Aggros, who I went to high school with. and we were all friends. And so to continue with Chuck, I'd remained friends with Chuck, but we went our separate ways. He moved down to Florida, and we really kind of lost connection. But you know how it is with close friends. You can not see each other for 20 years, and then when you see each other, it's like no time has passed. So when I was working on this, when I was working on Rise of the Aggros, and I had basically the entire album mixed and ready to go, I just really started to consider the fact that there were no guitar solos on it at all. And so I thought, I can always just call Chuck. So I took a MP3 of Chaos Magic, which to me I felt was finished. I'd already released it. It was like pre-single to the album. It was out, and it did, it was received very well, and it felt complete. But I thought if anybody could do something interesting to it, it would be Chuck. So I sent it to Chuck with a simple email that said, "Hey Chuck, long time no see. Play a solo on this at 1 minute 30 and at 2 minutes 45.
Right.
Parris." And then I sent it off, and about a half hour later, I get an email from him that says, "Okay." And then about 2 days later, he sent me a solo. And I feel like I've told this story, and it sounds like deprecating, but it wasn't. It really isn't, because the solo he sent me was good. It was excellent by any normal standard. Like, it was an excellent guitar solo, certainly better than anything I could have played. But it wasn't what I expected, because when Chuck and I were kids, he used to always make these. He had this like 4-track demo machine, and he would sit at home and he'd write these crazy solos where he would do 5 harmonies. And he would play this crazy Eddie Van Halen stuff, but he would play it in like 5 different harmonic positions. So it was like, it sounded like a satanic butterfly or something,
For sure.
or a bumblebee or something crazy. And I used to just laugh when I heard them. And I would say to him, I was like, "What are you going to do with that? I mean, you can't put that in a song." It was astonishing to listen to. I mean, it was like mind-boggling musically, but I just couldn't see how it would ever fit into a musical context. Until now, I said to him, how I used to laugh at that, and I used to think it was crazy. That's what I want. I want you to do that.
Right.
And he just wrote back, "Okay." And then about 3 days later, I was in the studio with my engineer, and we got an email from Chuck, and it had like all these tracks. They were what we call stems. And so we downloaded the stems, and we tried to put them into the timeline, and we couldn't figure them out. We were like, "There's like 8 tracks here. What is this?" And I was like, "I have no fucking idea." So we called Chuck up, and we were like, "We don't know what to do with this. Like, what the fuck are we looking at?" And he goes, "Well, let me just send you a single track with what it's supposed to sound like." And so he basically sent me what you hear on the record, which is that wonderful like 5 harmony, like epic Viking in a rainstorm in the boat in the middle of the ocean,
Sure.
guitar solo. And when we heard it played back, me and the engineer just looked at each other, and my engineer said, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's Chuck Lenahan." And so we put that one in. We actually took the take that Chuck had mixed at home and just dropped it into the timeline. So we didn't even deal with all the tracks he had. He had mixed it so perfectly, we just put it in. But he had only played that in one position, in the first position. So I said, "Let's just grab it and throw it in the second position that I asked him to do a solo in." And we did that, and we had to do some elastic audio to make it fit, but it did. And then he didn't have to do the second solo. And I kind of sat with it for like, we were like sitting there listening to it, me and the engineer, and then the engineer said, "Why don't you ask him to play on another one?" So I sent him Sk8bored Fight, oddly enough. And when he sent back the solo, it was for the whole time that we're playing together, he played the solo on that whole thing. And we listened to it, and it just didn't feel like it flowed properly. So we just edited out these holes and then we sent it back to him and said, "Fill in these holes." And then we sent it back to him, and Chuck was like, "Yeah, I can't work on it for a couple of days." But we were in the studio, and the engineer said, why don't you just fill in those holes? And I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Then it'll be kind of like a duel. And he goes, yeah. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So we just spent the afternoon recording my solo spots in between Chuck's. And then once that was done, I was like, oh, this is fucking so cool. It's just like it is on the record. Then I just sent the track back to Chuck, and I said, listen, forget about playing in this spot. I'm going to play in this spot, but do a solo for the whole ending. So it'll feel more like, less of a, like it'll really be a Chuck Lenahan featured solo at the end. And so that's how that all came about. It's, it's the magic of improvisation and going with the flow. Chuck sent me these really cool things, and in trying to make it work and timing, I just jumped in and did those solos, and it turned out to be a good thing. I love doing that kind of thing. That's why I love having the control over the recording studio, because I'm not on a time limit. I don't have anybody standing over my shoulder telling me what to do. I mean, I've mixed and remixed these songs a dozen times, changed stuff all, on a whim, because I would just go to my friends. I hear Drew's like, because nobody's telling you to stop. That's a wrap on this location, Parris.
Oh my God.
But then subsequently, Chuck went on to play on, I sent him Fear of You Mirror as well. And I also sent him Best Destiny, which he plays such an amazing, mind, like head flexing guitar solos. I just love everything he does.
I want to point out there, if anybody is looking for the Aggros material, and want to purchase it direct from the artist, in the US, it's www.aggros.nyc, and in Europe, it is theaggros, one word, .bandcamp.com in Europe, and that's where it can be purchased. This is, like I said, this is straight from the artist, and give me a take on a little bit. You have a bit of a unique stance when it comes to delivering your music to the public. Could you implore that on us, please?
Yeah, and I'll just start by clarifying the Bandcamp thing we say is for Europe, because you can get vinyl and CDs. You can order from Europe, and they'll be delivered there. I have a connection out there that does it for me. But if you're in the United States, you would go to aggros.nyc to get the vinyl and the CDs. But anybody could go to Bandcamp to do a digital Bandcamp version anywhere. I always think it's a little confusion when I always say Bandcamp is just for Europe, but if you're just getting a digital copy, then you can do Bandcamp as well. Because there is no streaming. I do not participate in any streaming services at all. I just can't do it. You can stream this album on Bandcamp 3 times. And then if you like it, then you can purchase it. But that's the only streaming. We're not on Apple Music. We're not on any of those streaming services. I think, streaming services crept up on us when the music business had their back turned and fucked everybody. And they're making billions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating. They're making billions of dollars while artists have been indoctrinated and trained to believe that they have to give their music away. They're told things like, you have to get more ears on your music, and the best way to do that is to put it on all the streaming services. But in the abbreviation of that is you have to give it away. To get more ears on your music, you have to give it away. But that philosophy is not only sickening, it's not relevant to music that is what I call fetishistic. The people who like Carnivore and Aggros and bands like that they have a specific fetish about music. They're not the casual listeners. The playlists and those kinds of things that people would listen to get those ears on your music aren't something that I want to be a part of, because the casual listener is not going to be interested in what we're doing. And the people that are interested in it will seek it out. I hope. I hope to train or educate people to value our music enough to make a purchase that is less than buying 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks. That you piss out 45 minutes later, and this lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Paulie says, one of the best things Steve Vai learned from Frank Zappa was to keep ownership of your own music. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another part of it. This whole idea of just surrendering, your music to be heard, it doesn't even make any sense. It's not like, a band like Aggros or Incendiary Device is going to get on a playlist that is, because all those playlists and all those streaming services are controlled just the same way Facebook is. You have 5,000 friends on Facebook. You think you post something, you think your 5,000 friends see it. They only serve it up to 80 of your friends. So you have 5,000 friends, you make a post and only 80 of your friends see it. And if like all your 80 friends respond to it and like it and comment on it, then they'll serve it up to another 100, but never to that 5,000. And if you think those streaming services are any different, you're out of your fucking mind. You upload your music there for free. Unless 100,000 people show up immediately and buy your album, it doesn't get served to anybody. So this whole idea of getting ears on it is a myth. It's just another way of getting you to pay more. Or like, oh, you have to pay this distributor. I love the terms they have for streaming services to upload your music. Like I was speaking to this woman at Apple Music because a friend of mine in the music business said, she'll get you the best possible deal. She said, okay, you'll upload your music to Apple Music. I was like, okay, how do I do that? She goes, well, you have to go to a distributor. They use this word distributor, like it's the thing. And it's a company that you upload your music to them and then they upload it to Apple Music. But you have to pay this distributor to upload it to them. I was like, well, what am I paying for that for?
Yeah.
Why am I now? I'm not only giving my music away, but I got to pay $100 to somebody. And I said to the woman at Apple Music, I said, does Apple Music own this distributor? And she's like, well, I don't know what to do with anything.
Listen, in about 5 minutes, the whole planet is basically going to be Amazon, right? Everything comes from one central warehouse. It's really like those corny futuristic movies from the 70s. And John Paul Stone says that philosophy is insulting to a musician. It's a ripoff. I hate agreeing with Lars, but fuck if he wasn't right. And that what he's referring to is the Napster thing, and how at the time, Lars was vilified because of his Napster stance. But in retrospect, that was sort of the beginning of people streaming music for free and musicians and bands not seeing anything for their music. That was the beginning of it. Just tying in with Lars and the Crumbsuckers. And when I was just sort of an interesting little commentary is that when I was doing the Alago film and I was interviewing Metallica, and I was in the Metallica rehearsal room, and I was about to interview Kirk Hammett, and he knew a little bit about who I was and my background, and I'm about to start the interview, and he's sort of looking at me a little odd, and I'm like, "What's up?" And he goes, "What's up with New York hardcore?" And and at the time, I not only doing the Alago film, but I was doing the New York Hardcore Chronicles film, and I said, "You want to fucking talk New York hardcore, bro? I'll make it fucking rain in here." And he's like, "Let's talk New York hardcore." So the Alago interview gets tabled for about 20 minutes, and me and Kirk Hammett start talking about his love for New York hardcore, and the Crumbsuckers come up, and how he really he said, in the interview, the Crumbsuckers, and this is taken from that day in the rehearsal room, and he said he loved the Crumbsuckers, he loved the guitar playing in the Crumbsuckers, and he really it was really interesting. His sort of take on it was, he felt that like the same way you had like the Seattle grunge sound, and you had sort of this, he thought that the next big musical movement was going to be coming out. It was going to be like New York hardcore. It was going to be Crumbsuckers, Cro-Mags, and that type of thing. He really thought that was going to be like the Seattle sound, and it was interesting, and he was a big fan and a big lover of Crumbsuckers and New York hardcore specifically. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, no, I crossed his paths before. He was always very gracious, and and he's right. It could have been that way for my high school band, but we didn't stick together.
Yeah.
We didn't stick together.
Yeah. Well, it's a very common theme.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we want to touch on? Hey, you know what? We're gonna. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we take some questions regarding Aggros or anything like that? Before I kind of shift gears.
Sure. Everybody watching, go on my YouTube page, watch the videos. I work on them really hard, and I think they're very entertaining. And do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, because it makes a difference. Because every time I try to book a tour or a show, the booking agent says, "Man, you only have this many subscribers," and I never in my life realized how important that is. But it's something you can do. It's free, and it helps the music, and it's very easy. And just go on there and subscribe, and that would be a big help, and I'd appreciate it. And get the record. I worked really hard on this record too. I played my heart out. I sat with my guitar for years and played all these things that just made me happy. And I put them all together with a bunch of other great musicians like Chuck Lenahan and Roy Mayorga and Cobbs and Dirk, my piano teacher. And we made something that I'm more proud of than anything I've ever made in my life. So please get it and enjoy it.
Fantastic. A comment from Arnie Stone. This is the most interesting show I have seen in a long time. Great work, guys. Thank you, Pop. Good to hear from you, and we're glad you are enjoying the show. Another really nice comment.
Hold on a second. Thank you, Arnie. That is a wonderful thing to hear, because Drew used to bring me to your sets, and I would watch you work, and I never went on set making a music video without thinking about the way you ran your sets. And I even imitated your visual style to a large extent. Slam, the way the shots are framed, were very much in line with your style. And I learned a lot from those little bits of time that I had the privilege of being on your set.
Very kind of you. Thank you. And I carried a lot of that too. A lot of that humor dialogue style. With the wide angle lens. And yeah.
And of course, we got Greg Smith, his DP.
Right. Yeah. For those of you that may not know out there, is that my dad's cinematographer, a guy named Greg Smith, who I've talked about on the show because he gave me all the London 1977 photos that are coming together in photo book. He was my dad's cameraman, and when Parris and I started, our run here, we needed a guy, and we brought Greg in. And Greg went on this glorious run with us. And Greg was behind the camera for Punishment and Slam. And I'll never forget. I love the Greg said when the first take a Slam, when everybody pulled guns out and we're waving it in the camera lens. And Greg got up off the camera and pulled me aside and said, I'm not. He's like, he's in the, and everyone's, that first take. Remember that? And I was like, listen, you guys.
I think Greg shot everything except for Shades of Grey, which your brother shot. Evan Stone, he did an awesome job. It's definitely in my one or two favorite videos that we've ever done. And Dave Sharples, he did Proper Dose.
Proper Dose, yeah. Another really kind word from Larry the Hunter. It's not many times in life that you get to meet your musical heroes. Then they actually end up a good friend. I'm lucky that it has happened to me a few times, and Parris is one. Very nice.
I feel exactly the same, Larry. Thank you.
Before we, Kenny Clark, thank you for coming out in San Diego. I just subscribed to the Aggros. Hi, Arnie Stone too. Absolutely. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Clark.
We're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and take questions from around the world. But I want to, before we do that, I want to go down this rabbit hole a little bit. You've worked with this guy a bit. I'm a long-standing fan of The Walking Dead. Could you give us some perspective on your work on the spin-off show and your friendship with this gentleman?
Yeah, this is Dead City, Walking Dead spinoff. I was hired by cinematographer Terry Stacy to work on the show, and when I first heard about it, I didn't know what it was going to be about. I didn't know who the stars were, so I texted Norman Reedus, who's a friend of mine, and I was like, "Hey, is this your show?" And he said, "No, I'm not on that one. I'm on one in France, but my friend Jeffrey Dean Morgan is on that one. Definitely tell him I said hello," that kind of thing. So I show up to set, and like the first day on set is always, just a little shaky, but literally the second, the AD says we're in, people are just, right back on point. And the director and the cast and the AD, we're all kind of like in huddle, getting to know each other. And then the AD is given his opening speech, much like Drew used to do all the time. And Jeffrey interrupts the AD's speech, and he points at me and he goes, "Are you Parris?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You're Norman's friend, right?" I said, "I am." He goes, "Any friend of Norman's a friend of mine." And he came over to me and he gave me a big hug.
Aw.
He's just like, "What's going on here?" I was like, "I don't know." And Jeffrey's also a producer of the show. So, he's a consummate professional, great guy to work with on set, and a fun guy to know outside of set. I don't really know what more to say than that. He's also what he calls an unabashed Aggros fan. He likes heavy music. And working on the show was great, man. I can't even tell you. I unfortunately, they're not shooting. I won't be on season 2, but they are coming back. So anybody who loves the show, it is coming back. And the show was just nominated by the Critics' Choice, best TV show, and Jeffrey got a nod for best actor.
Cool.
So it's all looking good. But Jeffrey's a really, really great guy. He's a no bullshit guy. He's the boss. Definitely the boss of that set.
I love the story you told me yesterday, but we can't talk about that on the air. But the story you told me yesterday was great. About that was a good one. But there you go. Let me take a quick break. A couple sponsor things, and let's take some questions from around the world. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Our guest today is Parris Mayhew, Aggros, formerly Chrome, Steadicam operator, long, rich history in the New York hardcore genre. Please post your questions, go deep, get weird. Once again, this is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by blah, 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 and 126 Hardcore Clothing. They're a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about spontaneous. They're about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself, my friend. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them. Ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. Come on now, Joe Romini, cousin of the godfather of New York hardcore, Vinny Stigma, the Texas Silver Rush. They're a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in work with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as to style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. The client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rollet, Ringo Starr, and of course, my friends and yours, Agnostic Front. Information on online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, www.silverrush.com. Want to mention a couple of events coming up. It's going down. Sunday, April 7th, I am moderating the book event at Generation Records for Ray Cappo's From Punk to Monk. This is going to be a great event. Come on down. A week later, somewhat a week later, was that 7:40? Almost 2 weeks later, basically, I am moderating the Ray Cappo From Punk to Monk book event up in Beverly, Mass. at Bridge 9 Records. There you go, Bridge 9 Records. I know you're listening right now, Bridge 9 Records. And if you're in the store and you're looking at that record, pick it up, bring it to the counter, and pay our friend and supporter, Larry Kelly, for it. Larry Kelly working the counter at Bridge 9 Records today. That said, after that, Sunday, April 21st, it's the Back to the New York Hardcore Roots series at our home, the Barry Electric, with Fahrenheit 451, Kings Never Die, Brick by Brick, the Car Bomb Parade, and Faded Line. Talking about Larry the Hunter, Kings Never Die. It's free. It's all ages. Sunday matinee. Come on down. There's an art show May 4th at said Bridge 9 Records. Lori Dawn, Mike Gallup, Christopher Michen in Beverly, Mass. May 4th, Bridge 9 Records. Sunday, May 25th, in our beloved Tompkins Square Park, it is our annual Memorial Day show. Rebelmatic, Incendiary Device, Non-Residents, Cartel, and now Redwoods is on the bill. Redwoods, of course, featuring Danny Schuler from Biohazard's Son on drums. Bunch of teenagers, they rip. This is going to be a great show. Come on out for some sun and fun in our beloved Tompkins Square Park. Rampage Fest 6, Sunday, June 2nd. Adrenaline OD, Silence Equals Death, Daija, Blackout Shoppers, Fire is Murder, Iconicide, and No Compromise. Brought to you by Hegs and the New York Hardcore Chronicles live. Here we go. A big banger right here. Sunday, July 21st. It is the 50th Back to the New York Hardcore Roots show. Can you believe it? Sworn Enemy, Incendiary Device. It's going to jump off tonight. The Pride of Staten Island, Cropsey, Redwoods, featuring Danny Schuler from Biohazard's Son, Colton Schuler on drums, and Foul Pride. This is a hell of a show, 50th show, Sunday, July 21st. Get your socks on, kids. It is right around the corner. That said, post up your questions. Go deep, get weird. We're in no rush. Let's bring our guest back on, Senor Parris Mayhew. Let's see what we got.
Oh, by the way, great show last night.
Thank you. It was aight.
It was good.
I like the 20-minute sets. You know, it's like you just boom, 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 boom. See ya. You know, like I said at the beginning. Whenever we stop now, it feels like really awkward when we're standing there. You know, like ooh. So thank you. It was good.
I look forward to that. I look forward to that Kings Never Die show too.
Yeah, good. Okay, what do we got? Paul Bayford just subscribed to Aggros YouTube and followed on Instagram. Going to buy the album. Very cool stuff. Right on.
Thanks, Paul.
It's always nice when the system works, doesn't it? You come on the show, you do promo, people sign up, you sell a record. Hallelujah. God, I love that.
I'm happy about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Nobody's Perfect, NYHC. Is that you, Junior? Parris, why was it made to have no vocals on the Aggros music? Will you ever entertain vocals for any future Aggros music?
I don't sing.
That's it. Hey, Parris, I'm going to see Joe Satriani and Steve Vai next week. Are you a fan of either of those guys or any other instrumental music?
I'm not a fan of Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, no. But I listen to a lot of instrumental music. The Dixie Dregs are probably my favorite. I listen to them all the time. Night of the Living Dregs is always on my playlist. What If by the Dixie Dregs. I love Brand X. It's a British instrumental jazz group that not a lot of people know about, but they're amazing. And I think I was listening to them for about 5 years before I realized that Phil Collins was the drummer.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic group, Moroccan Roll or Unorthodox Behavior, great albums. I absolutely love Polyphia. They're a modern band from Austin, Texas, who are very much like the Dixie Dregs. If you imagine the Dixie Dregs were born in Austin, Texas, and were like 20-year-olds and loved hip hop. Not that there's that they actually sound like hip hop, but they take their cues from it, like sonically, lots of sub bass, but it's really virtuoso musicianship, astonishing drummer, astonishing bass player, and two of the most revered guitarists at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I love instrumental music. To me, making an instrumental album wasn't a plan, but it came very naturally. Once I felt like one of my songs was complete, and I played it over and over from beginning to end, and it was 7 minutes long, and I didn't notice that there weren't any vocals on it. I realized that I could release a piece of music that felt complete, told a complete story without vocals, and instead of like that person who asked about vocals, instead of thinking about what's not there, you should consider what is there, because where there would have been vocals, there are other things. There's a conversation between the instruments, which is nothing new. Dixie Dregs and Brand X and all these instrumental musicians had taught me how to do it, and that's what I enjoy doing. When you have a singer, your vision can become so completely altered as to not bear any resemblance to where it started from. So it's a very difficult thing to incorporate. So the idea of asking me the question, would I ever entertain the idea of having a singer? I'd entertain the idea of having a harmonica player. If I knew one that played music that moved me, or a violinist or a cellist or any instrument, the only reason that I knee jerk to bass guitar and drums is that's because that's what I know. And when I first wrote and released Chaos Magic, it was a guitar, bass, drum song, and no keyboards. It wasn't until I started to entertain the idea of making an album that I started exploring with piano. I never thought about piano before, but I found myself with an extraordinarily talented piano player in my lap in the form of my piano teacher, Dirk. And when I became very bored of learning Beatles songs on the piano, I said to him, I was like, I learned how to play guitar by writing songs. Like, to this day, I would never pick up my guitar and play a Metallica song or a Minor Threat song. It's just not what I do. I never ever look at my instrument and think I'm going to play a song that somebody else wrote. I just pick it up and I write. That's what I do. And I practice the songs that I write until I got really good at it, and I became a proficient guitarist at playing my own songs. So I asked Dirk if we could do the same thing on piano. And that's what we've been doing. We've been transposing my songs to piano, and then he teaches them to me. And as we have done that, we do like a rudimentary explanation of like what key everything is. Every part we talk about what key it is. What are all the chords in the key? And like as he would play the chords, he would hit one chord. I'd be like, that, I like that chord. And then that chord would become a part of the song. And then we would work out a keyboard part about it. So I actually worked with a singer for a while, but it just didn't work out. It was a problematic thing, but I never ever felt like, oh no, I don't have a singer. I just thought, oh, well, I have a piano player. Oh, I have Chuck Lenahan. And I have this way of arranging a song in a way that builds and ebbs and flows and has peaks and valleys. And you're constantly entertained from the beginning and the end, to every song. And I'm kind of astonished when I listen to this album and I hear that in every single song. Like somebody in the comments asked me which song was my favorite. I don't have a favorite. To me, they're all the same. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, there you go. Jason Ford says, Parris is a great interview. Loved him on Hard Lore as well. That was a great interview you did on Hard Lore. I watched it. It was very good. That was the Slipknot guys interview, right? Yeah, it was very good, man. I was surprised how good it was. They sort of knew their stuff, and I was sort of surprised that you did such a deep dive into some of the Cro-Mag stuff that, like, between you and me, it's like, we don't need to talk about it anymore. It's been talked, but I was sort of surprised that they had some pretty smart questions regarding that stuff,
Well, those guys approached me differently than most people did. They did it completely from a position of love for the music, whereas a lot of people just want to muckrake or, or like want to hear you say something bad about somebody.
That's right.
These guys didn't do that at all. And the funny thing is, when they approach me, I usually don't address any of the interview requests at all. Barblin takes care of everything, and she vets everybody. She looks at their content, sees how many views they have, or whether it's worth the time. Because you know me, it's like once you get me talking, it's not going to be a 45-minute interview. It's going to be 3 hours. So she doesn't want me
as we're at 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, she doesn't want me to spend the time if I'm not gonna, if it's not worthwhile. But I didn't pass this one off to her. When I just got a message on Facebook or something, and it was from, I think, Colin, and he said, "Hey, I want to do a podcast. Will you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so it got set up, and it wasn't until I looked at the Zoom link, and his email was like Colin at slipnotfest.com, and I was like, "Oh, what's this about?"
Right.
So I was just going into something that, I thought could have been like, had like, average, 5,000 views or something like that. But now it's at 45,000 views now. But I spoke to him before the interview, and he said to me, he goes, do you mind talking about the Cro-Mags? And I said, no, I'll answer any question, or I'll not answer any question.
There you go.
But I won't know until you ask me the question. And so he was like, fair. So when we deep dived into all that stuff, when we spoke, the funny thing is, if I had known who they were, I would have become more prepared. Like I had I wasn't prepared to talk about the Marauder album. These guys apparently, like after I did the podcast, they actually have a whole podcast where they have they rate albums on the Marauder Master Killer scale. Like Marauder is 10, and that's their favorite album. And so when they brought that up, I mean, I obviously could have done a podcast entirely on Master Killer. I would have dug out my Master Killer journal. The only people who know about it is Anthony. Anthony would always ask me, he's like, "Dude, can I have a copy of your journal from when we made that album?" I was like, "No, you don't want
it." You don't want that. You fucking guys are driving me nuts. You're fucking.
But the guys.
The
guys in hard lore might appreciate a lot of it because it is humorous. I told one little anecdote about how I would go jogging every night, and then one night.
Yeah, I heard that. That was good. That was interesting. That was good.
That was a great memory. I'm not going to dwell on the unpleasantness and having to yell and scream at guys and all the shit that we went through with the record label where they tried to halt this to me to this day is astonishing that Oliver tried to halt the recording halfway through because he was convinced that I only took the job to sabotage his label. Do you remember that? And then I had to sign all these papers to say that I won't sign. I was like, how is this going to hold up in any way? And I said to him, I was like, he obviously doesn't
remember that.
If he imagines that I would endanger the opportunity that these guys have to make an album. I mean, people go their entire life. Everything that leads up to that first album and is an entire life of heading to that position to be able to make an album in a real recording studio with a real budget. And he thinks that I was going to spitefully sabotage that opportunity of a fellow musician. Is he out of his fucking mind? And that was just one day. That
recording was an adventure, I mean, and I don't,
and they feared this because of the experience that they had with Harley, not an experience that they had with me.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
Person.
Right. They were signed to Century. They put out Alpha Omega on Century Media. Right.
But yeah, I mean, if I had been prepared, I certainly would have given them more about that record. Because there's so much to talk about and so much good to talk about, so much fun. One of the things I mentioned was the incredible opportunity that was given to me by you. You were the one who hired me to do that record, nobody else.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know it wasn't one of your more pleasant experiences, but the truth of the matter is we are our results in this lifetime. And I know the hard work and the focus that you put into Marauder Master Killer record. That sonically is a great sounding record, a real I don't want to say iconic record, but maybe I'm a little too close to it. But people, it's incredible how people cite, as you know, people cite that record as to being this incredible, and I was there, and you worked fucking hard on that record, and a lot of the truths about that record will never be told. That's just the way it fucking is. Like, you know, and I know a lot of truths will never be told about that, the making of that record. But you put in a lot of hard work, and there's a direct, and I'm talking to the audience out here, that there's a direct correlation for fans of Best Wishes and Marauder, because, you know, Parris, you utilized a lot of those techniques that were tried and true, they sort of carried over to Master Killer. And I always thought part of the reason that Master Killer sounds as good as it does is because of your experience in that studio with some of those people on Best Wishes, right?
Well, certainly I eradicated the mistakes that were made on Best Wishes.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, I listened to Best Wishes and I cringe. When I listened to Marauder, you know, I went into making the Marauder album with a singular vision, which is to make a record that will never sound dated. Don't use anything that will sound dated in 5 years. I want the record to sound like 5 guys in a room, and they're performing their instruments in tune, the best that they can possibly play, and that's what I did. Whereas something like Best Wishes, it's like so full of like studio trickery and echo and sampled snares, and I mean, to me, I can't even listen to it. But, you know, having an experience like that teaches you what not to do, as much as it teaches you what to do. You know, Phil Green taught me so much about being in the studio. He was a great person to learn from. So by the time we got to do Master Killer, which was right after you and I were in the studio doing the White Devil EP, I mean, that's why, that, if anybody wonders, the reason why Drew gave me the opportunity to do Master Killer was because he observed me in the studio making the White Devil CD. And then right on the heels of it, we went in to do the Master Killer album in the same studio.
Yeah. You listen, you're a studio and editing room pervert, bro. You know, when we used to do the music videos, you would be editing the music videos until the very last minute, and then there would always be the inevitable argument, and I need more time. I said, no, that's it, bro. And there is no more time. And you said, well, you know, it's on you. You know, it's like, it's on you. And I'm like, you're fucking delirious, man.
But to your credit, I remember, like, it was no. It was just like, this set is wrapped. Okay, that's it. We're closing up shop for the edit. But the one time that I insisted that we keep going was on Slam. And I said, please, Drew, this is the one. This could be something special. Please just give me one more day. And you did. So there's something to be said about that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that. But I remember I used to. What was the place we used to edit it? That Mitch used to. Is it Metrovision? Where we used to do all that editing. And I remember
we started at Laser. We started at
Laserdisc.
Laser Edit.
Laser Edit. Right.
Remember the Mafia place?
Yeah. We
used to go to those pig roasts on Staten Island, and they'd start, you know, saying things that they weren't supposed to say in front of us, and we were just like.
I remember I used to come in. You guys, I'd come in and sort of look at the cut and order us lunch, and we'd eat lunch, and then I'd get it the hell out of there. I couldn't sit in there with you and Mitch hours and hours and hours. I was like, I gotta go.
Well, also because it was in the middle of the night. You know, we would start at 6 p.m.
You guys work. He liked to work late too, you know. That said, what else we got? You I said this last time you were on the show, but man, even me in my sort of limited studio pros, it's like, boy, I'd like to take a crack at remixing Best Wishes. I know that's not a reality. God knows where the tapes are, but even me in my, like, I think even in retrospect, like, God, I'd love to hear that thing remixed, I'd love to hear that thing remixed and remastered with fresh 2024 ears,
Because the tracks were recorded excellent. It was just the mix that was horrible.
Right.
I mean, and they could have been much worse. I was played mixes that had like things that you'd hear on a Scorpions record, like the hi-hat recorded and then played backwards. So it's like, like, have you heard? Like you'd hear on a Billy Squire.
That was Billy Squire.
On the song, the only one. They had that stroke me thing on the only one. So it was like, dan it, and it was like all these, and the drums were so much more echoey. And I remember just being, this is horrible. This mix, no way. And just pushing and pushing and pushing until it got to the driest mix possible. And the mix is so wet. But you could easily go back and take off all that echo, change all the drum samples.
All the gates. Take off all the gates.
Yeah, Petey Hines' drumming was astonishing.
Yeah.
It didn't need drum samples. It could just be raw drums, just like we did in Marauder. When you listen to the Marauder album, you're listening to Vinny playing the drums.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing extra added. That's what I want it to sound like. And that's how Best Wishes should sound. And also fix some of the like off-pitch vocals, could be adjusted, or hopefully look for another take and see if there's something that's not off-pitch.
Yeah. Where do I have a Master Killer? Yeah. Here's one. Hold on. Oh, yes, Petey Hines. And we talked about this.
But I'm going to stress one thing that we mentioned about. I definitely enjoyed working at Normandy, but I tell you, I recorded this in storage rooms, in people's living rooms, and this is the best sounding record I've ever made. Yeah. So it's really, it doesn't have to do with spending the money and going into a big studio. It's about focusing on capturing the sounds and capturing the sounds properly and getting the best possible performance you can get.
Yeah, Pat Baldwin says those Best Wishes songs sounded so much better live. Yeah, well,
I agree with you, Pat.
Believe me, Pat, that could be said for the material that was written that was to be the follow-up of that. That stuff was incredible live. When the band was Rob Buckley, Parris, and Dave. That material was really good. We were excited to hear that stuff get recorded, and that sort of took a bad turn. But that material was really great too. When you guys did those last shows before you guys split or whatever, when Rob was in the band, that material was great, man. Because that's when we were hanging, and I was coming to a lot of those shows, and that was a good band.
Agreed.
Let's see. And then I mentioned this last Chromags thing. I remember we were talking about doing an Only One video, and
that's right.
You had the whole story. We had it all storyboarded out. A video for Chromags, the song "The Only One." It was all storyboarded out.
That's right. I actually found some of those storyboards the other day.
Really?
I wish I had hold them out, because one of the other things I remember about that was, we were going to make that video, and we were holding interviews up at some production company. I forgot what Timo was the producer. Remember Timo?
God, yeah. Who was that? That wasn't Paul Rackman's who girlfriend or wife? No, who was she?
We knew Tima because of Paul.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. It was Paul's producer. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. So we were up there. I think she wasn't producing. We were just in her offices.
Okay.
And I remember we interviewed a camera guy, and his name was Jim McConkey. And And I just remember, like, I have such a vivid memory of like me and you sitting at a conference table in a conference room with him, and him like having a baseball cap, and he was like really young, and he was just like talking to us very enthusiastic about Steadicam and stuff. And we were both just kind of like looking, and we were like, yeah, this guy's hired, absolutely, because he was so into it. And I just remember him walking out the door and being like, "Oh, I'm looking forward. This is going to be great. It was really great meeting you, Parris. And hopefully we'll talk soon." And then we never made the video. And then subsequently, decades later, I'm very close friends with Jim, and he's the camera operator, award-winning camera operator for Mrs. Maisel. He's won camera operator of the year from the SOC like 3 years ago. And we're close friends.
Did you ever mention that to him that time we got together?
Of course. And his brothers, Larry McConkey, who did that, the Goodfellas shot.
Yeah. It reminds me of when Russell Simmons called me and said, "I got to hook you up with this kid, Brett Ratner. He needs a producer. He needs someone to sort of wrangle him in." And I guess I had somewhat of a reputation of being able to get shit done and wrangle people. So we go to a meeting.
Wait, you can manage the unmanageable.
Yeah. That was my car. We managed the unmanageable. So we go to a meeting, and I bring Greg Smith with me. It might have been like me, Greg Smith, Bazzani. I think Bazzani was there, who was our key grip. And we go with this meeting of Brett Ratner. And he this and talking about all this outrageous shit. I'm like, we can't do that. You can't do that. And it's getting kind of like combative. And I walked away saying, "Yo, I don't want to work with this guy because I don't want to be on the hook." Like I could see like, and I said to the guys, "Yeah, fuck this guy. This guy's never going to do shit in this business." It's like when we did the Biggie Smalls video, and you said, when we did the Puffy, the Super Cat video, and Biggie was in it, and you came up and you said, "That guy's going to be a star." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like
that guy in the corner?
Like that guy? Get the fuck out of here!" Or the that. But that's I love those ironies of life. Or like we talked about with the Collective Soul cassette, throwing it out of the car on Sunset Boulevard. For those that don't know, we used to get these packages to do music videos. They'd send us a package, and we get this package. I think we were already out in LA. We were doing something out there, Proper Dose or Biohazard or something. And we open up this package to solicit Parris directing and me producing a music video. And it's this band Collective Soul. And we sort of look at the picture of them and go, "Oh, look at these talents." And then we put the cassette in the player, and it was that song, Shine, I think it was called, or something. Right?
And we were doing that in the car. We were like, and you were like, and then you shoot the cassette and you went.
I just took it out of the player and threw it out of the car onto Sunset Boulevard. And we were looking at their 8x10 and go, "Look at this. What's this guy thinking?" And then, of course, the song went to #1 in America. And after that, we were humbled. We were like, you know what? It's not about just what we like. Remember, we used to go, "We only do music videos for bands."
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but the dates that they had slated for the video, it was a choice for us to either do a Proper Dose video. I mean, not Proper Dose, DOS Effects, or do them. And DOS Effects seemed like they were going to be a cool group. So we passed on the other one, and we went to the meeting for DOS Effects. And it was me, you, and the guys in DOS Effects and their manager or whatever. And I know people will find this hard to believe, but I never talked at meetings. I would sit there and and Drew would stand up and walk around and wave his arms around and do all the convincing. And I was just used to just sitting there. And when the meeting was over, the guys in DOS Effects told their manager that they didn't think I was interested in the job. So they didn't want me to direct the video. So that's why we didn't get either of those videos.
I remember we had this really great concept for the DOS Effects video, like them in the sewer or some shit. Remember, like they were under. It was like, yo, this is so underground. We're gonna shoot it underground, right? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
It's so underground, you know.
I probably have the treatment somewhere. I come across things when I go into storage. Like I found the punishment treatment, which to me, you know, I remember writing. I remember writing because back then I would write those treatments on paper.
Yeah.
Like on paper, and then I'd give them to my girlfriend Davisha, and she'd go to Kinko's and she'd type it up and then print them out into paper and make like 5 copies or whatever, and then we would give one to the label, you know, one to the band, that kind of thing. But so we had these paper treatments, and Biohazard got the treatment for punishment, and we were chosen to do the video. But you know, although I didn't do any talking at the meetings, I would do these very elaborate treatments. And and one of the things that I loved about that time was that Bobby the Handball would call me on the phone, and he'd be like, "Hey, Parris, it's Bobby." And I'd go, "What's up, Bobby?" He goes, "Would you do me a favor?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Would you read the treatment to me over the phone?" Why? I said, "Don't you have one?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I just like the way you read it. Would you please read it to me?" So I would read the treatment to him, and you would hear him like making noises in the background, like, "Oh, that's awesome! I love that!" And when the whole treatment, when I finished reading the whole treatment, he would go, "Could you read it again?" And I would just read the treatment to him over the phone, because you know it probably, you know, I vaguely remember some of the phrases were like, "Biohazard is not a band; they're a movement," you know. Right, everywhere they go, they're not. What's that?
We put I guess, of course, we put treatments in for all that biohazard shit, right? I mean, yeah, of course. So I've got a picture here. I might have shown it to you before. You took this picture. Do you know what this is?
Oh, yeah, Run DMC.
Yeah, this is. We were location scouting for Run DMC, and we went to Shea Stadium, and we had this concept of the two of them battling back and forth over home plate, right? And so we go into the meeting, and I do this whole pitch about fucking Shea Stadium. You guys are from Queens, and Shea Stadium is battling. The whole stadium's empty, and the cameras go. And I think it was Jam Master Jay looks at me, and he goes, "We want." I don't know if I shouldn't even say that.
No. You can say it without that.
Yeah, you know. He looked at me like I was crazy. And at the time, I looked kind of crazy. I was a white kid with red dreadlocks. I look, and he goes, we want chicken, we just basketball, and a bunch of our people. I'll leave it like that, right? And you and me, we just went, okay. And
I was like, so do that.
Yeah. So that ended up being this. That ended up there you are with the Steadicam rig, which back then we used to have to rent. You know, of course, now you own your own rig, right?
Yep.
And but this is us shooting Run DMC. What you gonna do in Hollis Park? Here's another shot just to show, like, yo, when we did these videos, Onyx Slam and Run DMC, yo, people came out, yo.
Oh,
People came out in droves, man.
Run DMC was the shit.
We loved that was a great one, man. Working with Run DMC, that was a thrill, man, you know?
And a couple of years after this, I just happened to be up at Def Jam, and I went over towards Leor's office, Leor Cohen, the CEO, and DMC was sitting there with Kathy Simeonidis, and I walked over and I was waiting to see Leor too, so I'm just sitting there, and DMC is like, he's like, "Oh yeah, we did that video together, and we used to, because we were on the same label, Chromags and Run DMC were on the same label, so we were acquainted, and we had that experience of making the music video, so we kind of knew each other, and we were just, for the first time, actually just kind of sitting there by ourselves, and I said to him, I was like, I really love doing that video. I love the band, and And I loved seeing you guys at the Garden with the Beastie Boys. That Together Forever tour was incredible. Like, I just remember like looking around Madison Square Garden. It was like, there's Mike Tyson, and there's like Mayor Koch. Like, it was like the whole Garden was just full of all New Yorkers. Like, it was like one of those like old New York moments. And the Beastie Boys came out and tore it up, and Run DMC. And I was like, you guys came out, and I said, I've seen bands at the Garden, and like you could be sitting in the shittiest seats, and like if you see a band like Tool, it's like there's nobody on stage. But when Run DMC walked out on stage, it was like they were in your lap. You know what I mean? And they were like right there. And I was saying this, and I'm having this like enthusiastic conversation with DMC, and he just looks at me. He's like, man, he goes, I'll never forget that night. He goes, we opened up with King of Rock. He goes, and while we're talking, he like stands up, and he's like, I stood up on stage and I looked out over the Garden, and I grabbed my microphone and I went, and he just starts like full on performance in front of Leroy Cohen's office. It's like, I'm the king of rock. There is none higher. Sucker MCs, you call me sire. To burn my kingdom, you must use fire, and I won't stop rocking till I retire. Yeah, I'll never forget that. And then he sits back down right next to me.
That's awesome.
And I just looked at him, and I'm like, I had chills. I have chills right now. And he's like, yeah, that was the moment. Such a great guy.
That's great. A couple of questions about the. Are both your Marshall heads JCM, Parris?
Yeah, the top one is a JCM 800. The designation of the numbers is the year. So if it's a JCM 800, it's from the 80s. And this is a JCM 2000, which obviously is from the 2000s. And if you have a JCM 900, it's from the 90s. But during that period of time in the 80s and the 70s, Marshall came to prominence. But the JCM 800 was the amp that I always use in the Cro-Mags and recorded all the records. Everything I've ever recorded, I've recorded with a JCM 800. But in recent times, I got the JCM 2000 because it has a channel switcher, so I can have a clean channel, which I never needed in the Cro-Mags, but I use a clean channel now. So I have that. So I have two JCM 2000s and I have two JCM 800s.
I know about the numbers.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I mean, I have a little Fender practice amp here, a Champion 110 on the floor that I play my guitar through sometimes, like in the living room. And I just got accustomed to playing on it. And when the time came to record Sk8bored Fight, I just dragged it up to Cobbs's studio and we plugged it in because we just thought we were making a demo, you know, but you always go in with the mindset of like capturing the best sound you can possibly make. So there I am in a storage room, you know, like one of those painted orange roll down doors, storage room with this little Fender practice amp. And Cobbs is an expert engineer, and he had this like cobbled together studio and all cracked programs, and he mics up this little practice amp, and we record Sk8bored Fight. And when you listen to Sk8bored Fight, that's me playing through that little Marshall amp after a career of only playing with Marshalls and just playing through that little amp in that studio, doing one take because Cobbs refused to overdub. And he goes, I hate punching. Don't make me punch. I'm a drummer, not an engineer. I'm like, okay. So I had to practice before I got to the studio so I could play it perfectly. And I played all those takes. When you listen to Sk8bored Fight, it's 4 guitar takes, all layered, but all played in one take. Wow. On a little Fender practice amp. So don't let anybody tell you you need this. You don't need this. You don't need a Marshall. You just need a good guitar sound, focus on it, and how you can mic it properly and all that kind of stuff. Never let anybody tell you you don't have the right tools. You know, I work in the film business. I work on movies and TV shows all the time. I'm used to working with like the giant Aeroflex cameras with the biggest sensors and the most fabulous $15,000 lens. So I have a certain mindset of the standards by which an image should be captured. But all my videos were recorded on a DSLR, Sony DSLR camera. And I focused on doing the same thing I did with Skateboard Fight, is I made sure everything was lit properly. I always meant there was an highlight, there was some kind of action happening in the background, whether it be a train going by. I made sure everything was lit in a dramatic way, and I made every shot count. And do that with your recordings, and they'll be stellar.
Steen in Denmark says, my 800 has been with me since the 80s. I never knew that 800, that 800s, I never knew that. Yeah, makes sense.
I didn't know it either. And I remember when they started making the JCM 900s, and they went from being tube amps, these are tube amps, to being transistor, which was all the rage, because, like guys like Dimebag Darrell, made the transistor their own. Dime wouldn't sound like that, but nobody else is going to sound right playing with Dime's sound. You know what I mean? He had such a the cleanest sound. But anyway, so in the 90s, when they put out the JCM 900, I hated them. I just didn't. I no longer wanted to play Marshalls anymore, and I just didn't understand it. And I didn't understand the designation either. So, but being in the Cro-Mags, I was able to get access to somebody at Marshall, and I was speaking to them about it. I said, "Listen, why don't you just do a run of 800s? Like, how can it make any sense for you guys to stop making the most popular amp you make?
Yeah,
900 now, it's fine, whatever." And I don't remember what year it was. I think it was around 98 or something. I've been communicating with Marshall for years, always complaining about the 800s. And I got a call from Nick Bocott. You remember Nick? Marshall? Yeah. He was also in the band Grim Reaper, but he worked at Marshall.
Yeah.
And he calls me up and he's like, "Listen, Parris," he goes, "I can't believe I didn't think of calling you earlier, but I don't think it's too late." So I go, "What?" He goes, "Well, we were digging through the storeroom in Marshall in the back. And when we discontinued the JCM 800, we had all these components left over. So we boxed them all up and put them in storage, in our storage room." And I go, "So what are you saying?" He goes, "Well, we opened up the boxes and we had enough to make about 100 heads." I said, "You're kidding me." He goes, "So we assembled them. We assembled 100 Marshall heads. And we did a deal with Guitar Center to do these special Guitar Center JCM 800s. He goes, and we sent them out all over the world." He goes, "But I think there are 2 left in LA. And I just happened to be in LA. So I went straight over to the Guitar Center and they had 1 left."
Oh.
And I just walked. I didn't even play it. I just walked up to it because I said to Nick, I was like, "Don't tell me this isn't like components that are almost like the one." He goes, "No, these are actually left over from the 80s."
Wow.
He goes, "So they are JCM 800. So I have that one down in the basement." So I was able to get another one, but then they never did it again. Then they started making. But the 2000s are channel switchers like the 900s, but they're tubes.
Got it. Let me ask you. Let's go into the bit. This going back to July 4th, 1984. I believe this was the first Cro-Mag show. This was my band, The High and the Mighty, was on the bill. Heart Attack with Jesse Malin was there. This is sort of a landmark show. It was Heart Attack with Jesse Malin's last show ever. It was Cro-Mag's first show, and we were on the bill, the High and the Mighty, right? So the visual. This is July 4th, 1984. But here's the visual for that show, and I know we've chuckled about this amp before that you could see behind you. Was that the custom? Was that a custom? The amp that I ran you down the street and borrowed from you?
Yeah, because when the Cro-Mags started, I was the bassist. I was the bass player when the band started, and that was my bass amp. It's an acoustic bass head.
Right.
And the cabinet is like a PA speaker, a custom PA speaker. But it was all I had, It's like you dealt with what you had. So that's what I used. I used my bass amp. But a lot of people don't know that the JCM 800 was originally developed as a bass amp. And that's why it has such great low end for the guitar. So when I was playing through this, it really wasn't that much different than playing through a Marshall. It had a really good low end, and that's actually the amp that I used when I recorded the Before the Quarrel recordings.
That's set up, that head and that cab, that head and that speaker. Wow.
Because that's all I had. And
Yeah.
the next time, the second time the Chromex played, this was our first gig. I love to tell that story about how I got the gig. I just walked into the lobby and the book, you know, they had the notebook on the desk. And I just like kind of like walked in acting nonchalant, and the guy behind the counter is like reading the newspaper or something. He's like looking at me over the top of the newspaper. And then I looked at I was skimming through it, like, and he didn't seem to mind that I was skimming through the paper. And then I saw HR written at the top of the page of one of these dates. And I just kind of grabbed a pencil and I was just kind of like playing with it. And then I got closer and closer to the page. And then I just wrote Chromex right under HR. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, "Is that cool?" And he goes, "That's your band?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're in that band with Harley, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." So that's how we got on that gig. But the second Chromex we ever played, which was also with Eric Casanova, our original singer, as you can see in that photograph, I rolled in with my.
Go ahead. Here's another shot of this is another shot of Eric Casanova, the original Chromex singer, right here. Boom. There you go. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I rolled in with that same, you know, acoustic head and the custom cabinet. And I was setting up when we were doing sound check. And, you know, back then, you know, there was like an open door policy at CBGB's. People would just walk in and hang out. And one of the people that just walked into CBGB's that afternoon was Jesse Mallon. And he came in and he just sat on that side bench on the left side on stage right. And we were setting up on stage, and Jesse's just kind of like like almost like I was at the front door, just kind of like acting like he was invisible. Like, you know, I mean, he knew Harley, they were friends, but they weren't talking or anything. And he just kind of like moseys up to the stage and he's like looking at my amp, and he actually steps up onto the stage and he's like looking at it. And he looks at me and he's like, "You use this to play guitar?" And that was the first words I ever spoke with him. And I said, "Yeah, why?"
Yeah.
He goes, you can't use that. It's a bass amp." And I was like, "Well, this is what I got." He goes, "Well, I'll be back in about a half an hour." And he left. And about a half hour later, he comes rolling this Marshall JCM 800 half stack in, and he comes up to the stage. He's like, "Grab that end." And I lifted it up and we put it in front of my thing, and we started playing with it. And, you know, fortunately, you know, we hadn't even started sound checking yet. And he's like, "You can use this tonight." And I was like, "Well, thank you very much." I mean, such a generous guy. And I haven't been close with him over the years, but I've just heard those kinds of stories over and over about him. So, and obviously he's your benefactor for your shows. So
he is all these.
If I haven't said it before, Jesse, thank you for lending me your Marshall amp all those years ago.
All these shows we do at the Bowery Electric, you know, it's because we have our, you know, our benefactor Jesse Mallon hanging over us. You know, that you know, when they come to give me a hard time, he runs interference. You know, about how, you know, the fucking kids from the park are lying out on the sidewalk puking and drinking underage booze and people in weapons or whatever. You know, Jesse like settles them down. so that there's that part of it.
A lot of people from, you know, the streets find themselves in a position of power and they just can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah.
But he's not one of those.
For sure. That said, let's once again, Chromags, Aggros. Let me post this. Let's talk about the future. How about that? Future of Aggros, looking forward. What's on the agenda? What's on the horizon?
I mean, I basically haven't really stopped what led up to making the record. I had a very generous friend named Mark Mastalone, who I could not have made this record without. We knew each other over the years, and one day I got Pro Tools and I put it in my computer, and but I didn't know how to use it, so I posted on Facebook, "Hey, is there anybody that'll come over to my house and help me install Pro Tools and get it working well?" And he responded immediately. And he said, oh, well, I can't help you do Pro Tools. He goes, but I had a recording studio, an active recording studio for years, and they just tripled my rent. So I moved all the gear out of the studio and into my house, and it's all set up. And he goes, and you're welcome to come over here and use it if you'd like to, but you just have to hire an engineer. And then he had 2 engineers on speed dial. And I just began, you know, spending my Saturdays, you know, because I was working 5 days a week on TV shows. And, you know, at night I would come home and I would take notes on what I wanted to do on Saturday. And I would spend, you know, 10 hours on Saturday, every Saturday for like 2 years recording. And so I haven't really stopped doing that, although I'm not doing it at Mark's anymore. I have another benefactor with a studio, with a actual recording studio. And for the past 2 months, I've been in the studio just recording ideas. And some of them will become songs, some of them won't. Some of them will end up on drives in my desk, like Fear of You Mirror did. But I'm always constantly writing. I must have 30 songs written, writing and recording things, and I'll piecemeal them together, and somewhere down the line, I'll figure out what to do with them. That's just my creative process. I mean, that's all I care about with music is having this ability, especially now that I have an album out. I have more of a, you know, kind of like a motivation, because I've seen the end product. So I'm pushing forward to record more. And, you know, we did a tour last summer with Chuck Lenihan on guitar and myself on guitar, and Dirk came out and played piano, and Cobbs was able to come out and play drums. And I love playing with those guys, and I'm looking to do shows in the future, but we all have very busy schedules. So as I did with this album, assembling, you know, there's 5 different drummers on this album. You know, it's like Cobbs, you know, Roy came on and did one song, Cobbs. And there's a couple other drummers on here. My friend Pete Asarisi plays on one song. So I imagine I'll move forward, and I will reach out to these guys first, and you know, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to make another record together. But I'll just I don't wait for anybody, and I'll just brute force forward the same way I have. And I'm planning. My booking agent is working on dates now for probably the end of summer into fall, and then there's a prospect of finally one of the many bands who have professed their love for my former band are using their power to bring the Aggros out on the road. That's going to happen in the fall. It's a semi big band who I can't say who it is at the moment, but it should be really good. And we're talking about doing American dates and European dates.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
More to Europe for me. And yeah, I'm just going to play it by ear. And maybe I'll have a harmonica player. Maybe I'll have a singer. Who knows?
Count Ralphus says, write an autobiography, Parris. You have a unique and interesting story to tell.
You have no idea.
Yeah. And last one from Kenny
Well,
Clark.
thank you.
Last one from Kenny Clark. How heavy are those Steadicams? Any issues with your back from using that? That's a good question.
A Steadicam is heavy relative to the camera that you put on it. The average camera that I use in cinema or television is probably around 60, 65 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steadicam weighs 60 pounds when you're standing in your center of balance. So it's got this vest that you wear, and then this metal arm, this isoelastic arm that the whole thing kind of like floats on. So when you hold it in your center of balance, it weighs about 65 pounds, but it weighs more in direct proportion to how far away from your body it is. So as you go from here to here, it goes from 65 to 80 pounds, and then from 80 pounds to 100 pounds. So the idea is to keep your center of balance, but a lot of times you're like, might be running through a set and you swing it out and then you bring it back in. So like that, like moment of centrifugal force could weigh up to 150 pounds, and you bring it back into your center to 65 pounds, and you run up to an actor and like they don't hit their mark. They're like 2 feet off your mark. So you have to reach out for them. Now you have the Steadicam extended out. Oh. Now it's like 100 pounds and they have a page of dialogue. So you got to try to like hold it without shaking. So it's, the Steadicam is highly improvisational. So you're constantly moving and you're constantly trying to land in the ideal position so not to put so much weight on yourself. I rarely find myself in that 100-pound position. I'm an expert. I've been doing this for a long time, but you can find yourself in that position. And in terms of the back, I generally have found over my 30-something years that my back is just stronger than everybody else's. It's like that play Les Miserables, where the guy, he's pretending to be a classy guy, and then like this wagon falls over, and he goes up and he puts himself under and he lifts the wagon off somebody and the cop sees it and he says, this guy was once in service because he's too strong to be a noble. That kind of thing. It's like Steadicam operators are just stronger than everybody else. And it's just from years and years and years of carrying. It's like, imagine carrying around a 12-year-old who's fighting you.
Yeah. Got it. That said, let's go get something to eat. I'm hungry. That said, anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
Well, you for continuously supporting the Aggros and me and bringing me on to share your audience with me. I really appreciate it every time. The guys from Hard Lore also, that was great. And Mark Mastalone, who made Rise of the Aggros possible. I can't thank him enough. I'll thank him for the rest of my life. I appreciate Mark so much. And, my current recording situation with Georgios right now is on tour with our friends Go Bordello down in South America. But when he's back in town, he's with me on Saturdays and Sundays in the recording studio, working so fucking hard to make the next Aggros record. And I really appreciate him. And Bartlin.
Absolutely.
And Chuck. And Cobbs and Dirk, and everybody I play music with. These lovely people that, I've never had an experience of playing music with people, I know it's just like we used to say when I was making music videos, like, I was like, oh, the crew loves me. And you'd be like, you're the director. They're not going to tell you they don't like you. I'm the boss I'm the boss in the Aggros. So maybe I just think they like me, but I really like them. So it doesn't matter. It's no criteria of mine for someone to like me for me to like them.
I want to remind everyone that this fall, Parris and I are going to be doing an event at the Nighthawk Cinema, where we sort of we take a walk through the music videos that we did together, the Biohazard stuff, Typo Negative, Insane Clown Posse, Sepultura, King's X, on and on. And we're going to be doing that. The date's not set yet, but it's looking like it's going to be when after the summer, probably in the fall, when or something like that. And it'll be like an evening with Parris, Mayhew, and Drew Stone, and we're going to be going through these videos and talking about the stuff and taking questions. So look for that in the fall. And I'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, there you have it. 3 hours and 15 minutes. And we were just getting started. How about that, huh? Good to be back. Good to be back doing what we love doing. So, these week and a half breaks are really, that one helped me, man. I needed a break. A week and a half, I'll come back strong, Thank you, Joe Frank. Thank you, everybody. Drew, question for you. If I recall, Parris went to SVA like me. Where did you go to film school? I didn't go to film school. I went to the Arnie Stone School of Film. Growing up, my dad was a director, and I grew up in and around the film business. I think I have a picture of that. I got here you go. Talking about, here's a picture of me on the set at 9 years old with my father shooting the famous Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics, the famous Bill Russell Bell telephone commercial. Here's a shot from that day. Hello. Come on. Pop it. There you go. That's me at 9 years old there, and my dad in the middle, and basketball legend Bill Russell. So I grew up in and around the film business, watching my father direct people like Bill Russell and Terry Bradshaw and so on and so forth. And just came up in and around the film business and kind of fell into it. I didn't go to school. I was thought of myself as a teenager. I was going to be an actor, and I was into theatering and I did stuff like that, you know. So that's how I came up. And then, I mean, part of my story is how it really got going was I wanted to be a musician. So I was in bands, and I was in the High and the Mighty, and I met Parris Mayhew, who was in the Cro-Mags. And job to me was always something in the film business. I was a stage manager on a film stage, and Parris came to me and said, this band asked me to do a music video for them. I don't know how to put it together. You know about this stuff, Drew. Why don't you do it? And then around that time, I started my film production company, Stone Films NYC, and Parris and I started doing work together. And that video turned out to be Biohazard Punishment. So I sort of backed into it a little bit in an interesting way. So yes, Joe Frank. Yeah, there was shout out to Arnie. Yep, absolutely. I was homeschooled. That's right. That's a good one. I was homeschooled. But you know, I always had a job in the film business. I worked for movie equipment rental houses as a very young person, doing deliveries, and I learned about all the equipment in the film business, what it is, how to fix it. You know, I learned how to drive big trucks at a young age and moving trucks around the yard and the equipment house. And I learned kind of from the ground up in that regard. So, you know, so that said, thanks a lot, everybody. We will see you 1 week from today for Mike's Score. Looking forward to it. I hope you are too. Until then, my friends, do good things, and good things will come.